What's going on, people? Welcome to Throwdown, episode 78. I'm your host, Tony Polanco, who didn't turn his camera on for some reason, and tonight I am joined by Emilio Lopez.
All I want is a room somewhere far away from the cold night air.
Nice. Well played.
We got Brian Munjoma in the house.
Who else is super excited for the April PlayStation Plus games?
Oh shit! I hope those are April Fool's games, man. Because holy shit! Chris Seeley.
Hey, what's up, everyone?
Brett Murdock.
What up, my nerds?
All right, and we got a couple of special guests here joining us once again, Mr. Earthbender Charlie.
What's going on, boys?
And we haven't had this man on in like a year, so we needed to have him back on. My man, Andre Tipton, real otaku gamer.
Oh.
Get in here, Andre.
What's up?
All right, my
What's
man.
up? What's up?
All right, how you been, man?
Been doing good. What's up, everybody?
All right. All right. Before we get started, Andre, what have you been up to lately, man? We haven't heard from you in a bit, you know.
Man, just working on the site, trying to work on a few little projects. Taking care of my family. That's basically it, man. Just try to stay afloat. Trying to teach these young kids about gaming.
Yes.
Oh boy, don't even get me started.
Oh no, we're gonna get you started later on. I guarantee you that, man. We're gonna rev you up, boy.
It's gonna be some hate. I'm ready. I'll put my email in the chat. So
yeah, send it all to him. You know?
I'll put it there. Send it to me. I don't care. I just won't answer it.
Man, all right. I'm not gonna waste any time, people. We got some shit to talk about. Let's get into it. So, two big controversial things happened this week. Let's talk about the Nintendo one first, because that happened last night. It's like you guys are having all this shit. I was out. Me and Manny were out last night. It's like, why is this shit happening now, people? Like, calm it down. So basically, Chris, why don't you fill us in on what happened, man?
Well, I understand that Alison Rapp, who was working for the Treehouse as a program manager, I'm not sure what her title was, but she got the axe, and I'm not sure the timeline of her involvement with the GamerGate harassment that she's been undergoing, like how long it was happening before she got fired. But Nintendo basically canned her, saying it was because of conflict of interest, that she was moonlighting at a second job, and she stated that she was working to pay off her college debt, and she was working under like a fake name, so to avoid that. And I don't know, I got mad when I heard this because look, I know Nintendo doesn't listen to fans, right? They don't listen to outside stuff. They pretty much ignore everything that goes on outside. So it's not to assume that like they went, oh my god, these GamerGate guys we got to get rid of her. But they always, and I know this from personal experience, they always keep tabs on everybody. They have an eject button basically for anyone that they deem undesirable, or who doesn't. What they'll say is that you don't represent the brand well, right? That's how they would phrase it. And then they have a way to get you out the door as fast as possible if they think that's happening. And I think that's exactly what happened to her. I don't think it's because of moonlighting, because that stuff was happening when I was there. They said it was frowned upon, right? That doesn't mean you get fired for it. They don't find out, hey, you have a second job, you're out. That doesn't happen. You basically need to be working for Xbox on your side job, or Sony, right? They're like, don't go across the street, work for Microsoft. That was always the joke with moonlighting. So the fact that she got canned, it's like, the timing and stuff reeks of that. They just saw what was happening with her, and they're like, okay, you can't represent our brand well anymore because this stuff is going on. And instead of saying like, hey, let's talk about this, let's put you in a different position, let's investigate this, whatever, they're just like, take care of yourself, right? Out the door. And that's how I felt about this news.
Yeah, I mean, that I want to jump in on that point specifically, because it's like, okay, again, I don't know about this whole harassment stuff. I'm guessing she was, because I've seen some of the guys I follow, calling her like a pedophile or something, because apparently she wrote like a thesis on Japanese culture, and she was favorable of it. And Japanese culture, a little weird when it comes to that shit. Underage anime and stuff like that. But she was supportive of it, right? But so I've seen some of those attacks, right? But it always seems to me that this thing, at least, by the way, I'm rambling because I totally forgot what the fuck I was gonna say. But anyway, the point is, damn, I totally forgot what the fuck I was gonna say. Shit. Okay.
Old man Tony.
Old man Tony. Basically, I completely forgot. It was basically I blame Nintendo on. I blame. Okay. I'm not blaming the GamerGate guys specifically because, again, they're an easy kind of scapegoat, right? I'm not denying this woman got harassed, right? But the thing is, remember, I'm the type of guy that's like, you getting some shit on the internet, that's not really harassment. That's just words on a screen. Somebody has to physically come at you to be really harassed, right? But I'm not denying any of that shit happened, right? But I don't think Nintendo would directly fire someone because of that. Again, like you said, Chris, they don't listen to their fans. You think you're going to listen to, like, crazies? I don't think so. So it seemed to me, I was telling Manny about this because we were watching it happen. We were like, she probably did something else, and Nintendo fired her because of that, and apparently that's what did happen, Again, it just seems to me like Nintendo is being shady, and this is the thing I totally forgot about. Why the fuck weren't they, like, defending her when all this shit was happening? Like, she's getting smeared and shit all over the internet, and Nintendo was just like, we're not touching it. Kind of seems shady, kind of seems fucked up.
It's funny because when I heard this news yesterday, and Kristen told me about it, and I said almost these exact same words. I said Nintendo will put a statement out saying that she was fired for X reasons, and I even said this. I said they're going to say she was moonlighting or something, and I said they're going to end it off with, we wish her well in her future endeavors. I said I almost said the same bullshit that they said to the press, right? They always have these statements out. They have a reason ready to get you out the door. If you are not an E-level guy or a C-level guy, there's no parachute for you, man. Like, if they don't like what you're doing, you are out, and they have a reason ready for you to be out the door. So I think that her harassment, like all that stuff aside, Nintendo doesn't care about. But when they get this information, if these guys were sending Nintendo information, especially about her side work, and I don't know what her side work is. I don't have details on that. I don't know what she does. I don't know what the GamerGate guys sent to Nintendo about it, but that may have been enough to go, okay, we can't have ourselves associated with this, right? So that probably was the thinking, and then that led to all of this, and then she got terminated.
Terminated.
Yeah, I think it was
Tony, you're muted, dude. You're muted.
Yeah, I think it was a combination of both.
Yeah, my bad. I'm trying to do 50 million things. But anyway, my thing is this. It's like, it just seems like really, okay, yeah, it's like, why aren't you defending her, if all this shit was happening? That was all my thing, like, if this was indeed happening. But I don't know, Nintendo always seems shady, and again, it's just Nintendo being shitty,
Yeah, I said that too. Like, think about if this happened at another company. Let's say she was doing the exact same work for Microsoft, right, or Sony. I'm not gonna make any assumptions on their part, but I doubt they would have kicked her out the door at this time, right? They probably would have said, okay, we've heard about. We've had some complaints on this employee. We're going to investigate and stuff. We don't condone harassment or whatever. There probably would have been a statement like that, and they would have let a little bit of time to settle. And if they terminated her, it probably would have been quietly or whatever. Nintendo they hit that eject button, man. They just like, out. We don't want to be associated with this. Out. And they don't defend anyone unless you're Japanese. Unfortunately, she's not Japanese. So
yeah, let's keep it real here.
Uh-oh. Is that implying racism?
No, we're not implying. We're overtly saying it.
It's not implying, Charlie. They have a huge sense of nationalism, and they are kind of like that. Like, if you're Japanese, you have nothing to worry about. I'll say that.
But didn't the nature of her second job have a little bit to do with it as well?
What was it, Charlie? Just to enlighten the fans out there.
Well, it seemed like it was some kind of modeling thing. Some people were saying cam girl, but I don't think it was a straight up like sitting in front of a camera with your top off. I don't know how deep it was.
Yeah, I don't know if it was nudes or not, but apparently it was something of that nature, and they said it conflicts with I guess their family-friendly nature or whatever.
Yeah.
You know.
Like I can understand that to an extent, especially with a company like Nintendo. But I do think, like Chris said, they should have made more of an effort to defend her in light of what was going on, especially if
Yeah.
you're going to fire her.
You can't just like leave her to the wolves and then like, okay, you're fired now. It's like
Yeah.
you didn't do anything to help her out in the first place,
Yeah.
guys.
And I also think it is a bit of an excuse. I feel like they found out what she was doing, and I think had not the other stuff been going on, they probably wouldn't have fired her.
That's a good point to bring up. You know.
And they use it as a scapegoat.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both.
I guarantee
I bet.
if they had found out about this themselves, right? If they had done an investigation and found out she was modeling or whatever, right? They would have pulled her aside and said, like, look, we can't have you doing this and going out there and representing us in front of the media, right? So we're going to put you in this other position. Like, that's what they would have done without this extra stuff. But because this other stuff was happening and they found out about it, they're like, you know what? It's not good brand representation and you have this stuff going on, so goodbye.
Yeah. Oh, the other thing I wanted to bring up, because of the reason people were harassing her is because they felt that she was instrumental in getting a lot of the changes in Fire Emblem and a bunch of those games. My thing is like, guys, I mean, and Chris, you could vouch for this. Nintendo doesn't do shit because one employee tells them to change their minds. No.
Unless that employee's name the name starts with Shigeru and ends with Miyamoto, they don't.
Exactly.
To be honest, I mean, I think a lot of I came from a company that, which was for kids productions and for kids entertainment, where that stuff happened a lot, and our company got a lot of flack for it. But the thing is that people need to understand is that things that come directly from Japan and are put on national TV in the United States, even with video games, there's a lot of localization and changes that need to happen. Things that are okay in Japan are not okay in the United States. Hence, hence the removal of the boob slider or whatever they have in there.
Which she was actually for, by the way.
Which she was actually for.
Yeah, she was not against the boob slider.
So
okay. So
Go ahead,
I realize I'm just jumping back to explain. Rachel had gotten sick, so if I ask a dumb question, you guys are gonna have to excuse me. But who is exactly super pissed here? Because this just seems like an issue of both sides, like of an issue. Like the line gets drawn, two groups of people get on either side of the line, they start nitpicking each other, and so they're all just mad about this like gray area. It's like, okay, so Alison Rapp got fired, and you people think that it's because she was, under attack from GamerGate, and she had these bad ideas, so now she gets fired, and now, like, who's mad at who? Like, the anti-GamerGaters are mad at GamerGaters for a woman getting, in their eyes, fired for supporting child pornography through a contextual lens. Like, it's very weird to me that everybody's getting so up in arms about this. Like,
I agree. It's a bit, to me, this whole situation is muddy, and it's like everybody's getting angry at a whole bunch of different things, but there is, again, no focus as to where it's coming from. What is it? It's like, okay, yes, Nintendo is probably it might be at fault. See, so maybe something that she did was what she got fired. We don't know. It's just kind of all,
Well, yeah, it seems like the anti-GamerGaters are mad at the GamerGaters because somebody who was also anti-GamerGate got fired on the back of what they view as a harassment campaign, but the GamerGaters view as pretty much calling somebody out for doing something. So it seems like that this is only gray because you have a group of people standing on the edge of righteous indignation and supporting somebody who supports like child pornography, and they don't really know how to support this person without saying they also support their ideals. And that's also splitting hairs. Like the report she did was pretty much on how Japan has a long history of doing weird stuff and sexualizing 14-year-olds, and it's kind of America's beef that we've come in, and that's our problem. Like, I'm not saying it's right or it's wrong. I'm making no comment on that, but I mean, even in the context that she was saying it in, like, it wasn't like inflammatory. It wasn't. So it's everything about this seems weird. It seems like a pissing match based on principle, and this woman got fucking caught up in the middle of it, and people are now just mad that the other side is right. Like, I see very little substance here, and at the end of the day, it's like a woman got fired for either A, moonlighting, or B, holding controversial views, either of which, like, that's kind of the age we live in. You can get fired for posting pictures of your bender on your Facebook. Like, none of this is weird, and none of this is out of the ordinary. The only thing that's weird and out of the ordinary is the fucking reaction to this whole thing. And I agree that if you think that this is some kind of fucking hate mob that has now jumped on this poor woman and you know, made a mountain out of a molehill, like, here's the deal. You have to be careful about the shit that you say. And even more so, if you have a history of having very, you know, somewhat extreme viewpoints, don't throw stones at other groups of people who also hold extreme viewpoints, because you know what? They may pull your dirty little secrets out into the light. Like, that's the old adage of, you know, if you live in glass houses, don't throw stones. So none of this seems weird to me. Like I said, the only thing that seems weird to me about this whole thing is the reaction that everybody has, and the reaction seems very telling on who you think is right based on a series of other things. Like, it seems like we're not even talking about this issue as much as we're talking about which group gets to be right today.
I'm actually glad you said that as well, because everything you said just there is relevant to the next topic. So
yeah, basically. Yeah, no. So hold on to that. But couple of Andre, man, get in here. Did you see this go down on Twitter? And if so, what'd you think?
Yeah, I've known her for a little bit. I read the thesis and all that. I think a lot of it is both. It's both the stuff she's been getting online and the stuff that happened with her job. You know, I know she was part of marketing and stuff like that, and it's just, I don't know. I mean, it's just, you know, the people that the GamerGaters, I don't know what I know a lot of people were mad about the whole changes with Fire Emblem and all that stuff, and that she was instrumental in a lot of that stuff. And I mean, you know, she studies Japanese culture, so I mean, most of the people in the treehouse do, so they know a lot about the culture and what the changes they would need. Yeah, a lot of the changes were a little juvenile, but whatever. At the end of the day, I mean, it's Nintendo's decision. Right or wrong, it's their decision. It's their company. It's their games. It's, you know, do I think it's right? You know, no, not really. But you know, it's their company. You know, and the other job thing, I read the report about that, and I'm like, well, you know, you kind of knew. I even said that. I was like, you kind of knew what you were getting into, and you know, it is what it is. I mean, you know, it's nothing. I mean, the only person that's really not saying anything about it is her. She's kind of chilled out about it. It's like, okay, hey guys, I appreciate it, but you know, let's move on. And
well, she said quite a lot about it on her Twitter.
Yeah, she did.
Yeah, I saw a lot of stuff. I saw a lot of stuff that was said, but I mean, you know, like, you know, after a lot of that stuff was said, it was like, okay, we're done. So it's kind of like, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. You know, I mean, I don't know how far the GamerGator stuff went. I mean, I heard the police were called and stuff like that, and which, you know, when you mention GamerGate, that's the first thing that comes up. Somebody's got to call the cops.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to jump in on that real quick, because that's what it seemed to me, you know, because reading what you read on Twitter and what you read on actual websites, two kind of different things. On Twitter, everybody was mad at Nintendo, right? You go to websites, I'm talking about Kotaku, Polygon, all those sites, they all blame GamerGate. They didn't blame Nintendo at all. It was all GamerGate's fault, you know, drumming them up again, you know.
To a certain extent, it was, and I want to be very clear on the record with this. Like, the true neutral thing of what happened is Alison Rapp decided that she was going to jump into the already occurring GamerGate debate and start, you know, kind of firing shots from one side. And that basically roused a whole bunch of people against her, and then it came to light that she had written this thesis, and it was just kind of, at that point, tactics on both sides. Like, it's to which I can't really say, you know, again, back to gray. I'm not really sure who's in the gray area. Like, if you poke a sleeping bear and get mauled by a grizzly, like, I don't know whose fault it was. Like, nobody forced you into the GamerGate
I was going to say
argument.
the same thing.
Yeah, it's a great point. Exactly.
I was just about to say the same thing. You poke it, you stick your hand in a hornet's nest, you're about to get stung. So I
Right.
mean,
And I'm not.
I mean, the way she handled it was kind of messed up. I guess I don't know. I mean, it's just like I said. At the end of the day, it's all said and done.
I mean,
it's Nintendo's company.
Could it be at the end of the day you have a marketing rep who's antagonizing an online community, and that could be the beginning and end of it?
Oh, yeah. It could be. I mean, it could be both. Like I said, it could be either or.
Yeah.
It could be both.
Yeah, Chris, go ahead.
I would agree with that too.
Yeah.
I wasn't mad. I wasn't like taking sides in this. I was defending her. I don't know anything about her, and I didn't read the thesis or anything. So I heard about the games and the boob slider stuff and whatever. GamerGate. That's not what I got mad at. I got mad at Nintendo specifically because I know of them doing this with other people for non-GamerGate issues. Like anytime something comes up with somebody that might be questionable, their first reaction is to fire them. Right? And that's what pissed me off. That's where my anger was coming from. I'm not taking sides on either thing. I'm not defending her or saying she was right. I don't know what her stance is. I don't know if I agree with it, but I agree with Brett. Like if you're gonna pick a fight with these guys, then you're in for a world of hurt. But I'm mad at them because they never take the approach of a reasonable company would say, like, okay, we know you're doing this, we're going to have a discussion about it, and we're going to look into it, and we're going to see if this is reasonable for you to continue in your duties. No, their instinct is to kick you out the door.
Yeah.
And that's what pisses me off.
Here's the other thing. I mean, in general, Nintendo keeps a very low profile as far as getting into politics of the gaming community. Yeah. That's the same with every single company like Sony and Microsoft. You don't see those guys going out there, blah, 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 saying these sorts of things because in the end, these people are their no matter what, they are their consumers.
Now, at the risk of overgeneralizing, is it possible that Nintendo is doing a very Eastern kind of saving face? Like, it doesn't matter at this point whether or not Alison Rapp is right, wrong, or indifferent. She's brought controversy. She's brought negative press.
Brett, that is exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. If they think you do not represent the brand well, you are out the door. Like, simple as that. That's exactly what has happened. Yeah, that's the Japanese way, saving face. If you do not represent the brand, they used to tell us in meetings and stuff, they said, you are Nintendo, which means if you slip up, you do not represent the company well, and you will be fired.
Shit. Well, there it is, Brian, getting here.
That also explains why we couldn't have Chris on our show.
Right. That's
exactly.
I couldn't say anything.
Because it would be considered a conflict of interest.
Because Chris was Nintendo.
Was Nintendo.
Brian, get in here, man.
Yeah, I seen this whole thing just go down, and to be honest, I didn't care that much, to be fair. Because as soon as people started reporting that she claimed that GamerGate, quote-unquote, harassed her, I was like, oh, we're doing this again. Let's just clock out and play some video games. Because, like, to be honest, if you claim that GamerGate harassed you, then, like, I just don't care anymore. It's like, no, it's like, you are claiming that a hashtag harassed you. Like, do you have any idea how stupid that sounds? Like, literally, just walk up to like any random guy on the street and say to them, "Oh, I'm being harassed by a hashtag." It's like, okay, what's a hashtag? It's a thing on Twitter. Like,
what's a Twitter?
Twitter? Brian, I love the way you broke it down, man.
It's a thing on the internet. It's like, so how are you being harassed by a hashtag?
But you have to be a bit.
Send me stuff. That's mean. It's like.
I don't think that's totally fair, though, because I think in this current age of social media, it's entirely possible to be harassed by a hashtag, as silly as it sounds. Like that is a thing.
I just don't think that's a thing, to be fair, Charlie. Like, I honestly don't think that is a thing. It's like, okay, there are groups of people that don't like you, but then it's human nature. Like, there'll always be groups of people that don't like you, regardless of
the only thing about the GamerGate,
what you do. You know,
the thing that some of the GamerGate guys do that's different than regular harassment is some of these guys actually go and find out where these people live. and they threaten their families and that kind of thing. And that's where it gets
that's harassment. That is harassment on either side of the aisle.
Yeah, that's when it gets crazy. Yeah. I mean, with some of those guys, you don't know where it's going to go. You have to kind of stop them in the tracks. You know?
But that's happened on the anti-Gamergate side. But that's happened on the anti-Gamergate side too. Like they've sent boxes with open syringes full of weird fucking liquid poison.
Yeah.
Like
I'm saying that. Yeah, I'm not gonna take a sides of either one of them. I'm saying that both. You know, when you go that far, that's when you have to step back and go, okay, you're crazy.
Yeah, yeah.
You just crossed the line, and you deserve to go to jail. Whatever happens to you, you deserve it, because that's just insane.
I think as a community, especially in gamers, we all really ought to focus on like there's harassment and there's not harassment. Like you can be on whatever side you want, but if you resort to these tactics, you're an asshole. You're kind of a dick face. That's just how the rules go. And that's at least how I think of it that it should be. But as far as like online harassment, like you choose to participate in Twitter. There's very few people like you fall in one of two categories. You're either on social media because you want to be, therefore it is entirely optional. It's like walking into a public square. There might be people out there who are assholes. There might be people out there who are your friends. It's your choice to walk out there. And if you are a business or if you represent a business, then I'm sorry if you put yourself out there and you get roasted on the spit of public opinion, but that's always been a thing. Like, think of like network TV and, when you're asking, like, what do you think America, like, America is fucking cruel. America is a dangerous and childlike hive mind, and that's never fucking changed, man. Like, and if you put yourself out there, you need to be fully, aware of the reactions that you might get. I don't know where people get this idea that they're allowed to walk around the real world without being judged or without having conflict. That's just kind of what happens when you walk out your front door. And everybody should have the right to avoid that, but at the same time, like, you shouldn't be able to walk through life not having conflict. That's not a thing that happens or should happen. I don't think that people who claim they're being harassed ever claimed that is the way their life should be on the internet.
I think people just have their opinions, and then when people talk about harassment, they mean when like the rabid side of the internet just joins in on a discussion without actually having an opinion themselves. They're just joining in for the sake of it because it's the current meme right now to hate on a particular person. So let's just do hashtag and be mean to this person. I think that's what people mean when they talk about harassment.
So do you think that maybe we have a Peter cried wolf scenario where, like, I've personally seen enough people cry harassment when it wasn't harassment, enough people cry harassment when people disagree with them, or if like somebody comes out with a very strong opinion and then somebody comes out with a different opinion that proves them wrong. Person number one says, okay, well, you know what, I'm just not going to talk about this. Person number two says, oh, no, you've been tromping all around these forums, spreading your opinion and talking down to motherfuckers like you own the place. We're going to hashtag this out, or we're going to hashtag this out, and I'm going to prove why you were wrong. Then person number one cries harassment. So, like, maybe we're just in a position where we've cried wolf, and we really need to define what constitutes harassment to get this whole thing fucking fixed. But as it stands, the first time I hear GamerGate harassed me, I'm kind of like a lot of these other guys, where my first reaction is like, "Oh, Jesus Christ, really?
Yeah,
really."
Yeah, like that was my first reaction. I was just like, okay, what's really going on here? Because we heard it too many fucking times. Oh, GamerGate this, GamerGate that. You become numb to it at one point. And what if but here's the thing, you can't say GamerGate did this. GamerGate is not a real group. There's no like person that leads it. It's just a hashtag. There's no like defining goal.
It's a dumping ground that has no focus.
Yeah, so like my thing is like I'm not blaming this. So my thing is I'm not blaming this on GamerGate. I'm blaming it on fucking assholes. Like these pieces of shit that actually did like find out her personal information or phone number. That's real harassment. But I'm not gonna say a group did this. Like they belong to this organization because that organization functionally doesn't exist.
But to me, that's what makes it like potentially worse than if it was an actual group. The fact that a hashtag led to people getting her contact details, that's hashtag GamerGate harassment in its like perfect form, right? Because they actually went
according to the media, Well,
it's also not a hashtag. The hashtag does represent thing, and holding extreme actions based or be doing extreme actions based on holding extreme ideals is nothing new. I think the difference is that unlike in the Gamergate argument you have essentially the Gamergaters, and then on the other side of the aisle you have the social justice warriors. And I think the main difference is Gamergate is constructed into this this big kind of this big boogeyman, this giant straw man that appears to be one cohesive thing. But even like when you talk about somebody who maybe they're a white knight, or maybe they're a social justice warrior, or maybe they're one of these guys that just fucking sticks their nose in other people's business with an undeserved sense of authority and righteousness that honestly they can be a complete and total dickbag. They are still regarded as a single misguided individual. They are still a white knight or a social justice warrior or somebody who's trying to be your classic night guy to get a nice guy to woo some this person or that person, or to try and get people on their side on the internet. Any number of reasons that people could do shitty behavior, but the point still stands. When somebody on one side of the aisle does something, they're part of a greater monster, and when somebody on the other side of the aisle does something, they're just misguided, or they're holding the wrong ideals, or they're being overly passionate, or it seems excusable on one side. On the other side, it builds towards this kind of conspiracy narrative, which I find interesting, I guess.
Yeah.
And I can't help but feel like the whole conspiracy narrative is driven by people like Anita Sarkeesian, who turn around and use this victim mentality to fund their patrons.
Mm.
So for them, like this is a perfect example of real world conspiracy versus tinfoil hat conspiracy. The people making the money off of this have a very real interest in portraying it as a boogeyman, which is where this narrative was born. So you could say to a certain extent that media, or at least video game media, has a vested interest in portraying Gamergate as this big, scary, cohesive boogeyman, because it's good for people's business. The people's business who tell you the fucking news. And that, in a nutshell, is exactly why Gamergate got started. And that's the big kind of irony in it.
Yeah,
It reminds me of the movie Scarface, the remake, where like he's at the restaurant complaining about how the world needs him, so that they can point to him and say, "Look, that's the bad guy." And then it just reminds me of like what Brett said. Like the media needs like something to point at and say, "That's the bad guy, people."
Yeah, I was telling Manny this last night. Again, it always comes back to Animal Farm for me. I don't know. Gamergate is Snowball, right? If you guys remember that book, Andre, you already know what I'm getting at, man. Basically,
I know exactly where you're going.
Basically, Snowball was one of the original original animals of Animal Farm, right? He got I guess exiled, right? Anytime anything bad happened on the farm, right? The new leaders, I forgot what the pig's name was, but anytime anything bad would happen, they were like, Snowball did it, and all the animals were like, yeah, Snowball's evil, he did it. Snowball never showed up after he was originally exiled. He never came back again, but he was always.
Didn't they find him dead?
I think they did find, like at the end of the book, they found him dead. He was not around, but he was
basically a pariah.
Yeah, he was a pariah. He was a boogeyman, So I was telling me, I'm like, yeah, it reminds me of Animal Farm. And, again, it's funny I say that because when I was originally talking about Gamergate, I was like, hey, this reminds me of the end of Animal Farm, where, like, the pigs and humans are together and you can't tell the difference between them anymore. They're in league, It's very interesting. Yeah, but like you said, it's a very murky thing. And I'm going with Brett on this. Don't really get too angry about it, because we don't really know what the fuck's going on and who's ultimately to blame here. But again, it's just very interesting how everybody got open arms without really knowing the facts, and I think that says a lot about our current media. To be honest.
That was really exciting to watch. Just watch people just like jump to conclusions without all the facts, and then people just be like angry at like certain groups of people. And it's like, okay, you're angry at them, but are you angry at them because of what happened, or are you angry at them because you are just angry at them and you're using what happened to fuel your anger at the other side,
Dude,
and that's what seems to be like happening, and it is very telling and very interesting to watch.
Yeah, totally. All right, Brett, finish it off, and then we can move on to the next topic.
Oh, you guys made me realize, like, it's very obvious, like, especially how quickly people reacted that they have a narrative they're already wanting to push. They're trying to figure out how it works in there. It kind of reminds me of like you're watching the news and they flash a thing of like a car bomb exploded somewhere in the Middle East, and the conservatives rush out to say it was this, and the liberals rush out to say it was this, and everybody rushes out to say it was this, and they come to find out it was just like, oh, it was a faulty cylinder that had flooded gasoline and just fucking exploded. But just, oh my god, like something happens and everybody jumps, and like the minutia of it is far more mundane than anybody believes, but everybody's just so ready to pull out their fucking pitchforks and torches.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy how that works, but we see it all the time, and by the time you actually find out the truth, they would have already lobbed a bunch of metaphoric bombs at each other. You know, they would have waged their little war without knowing what really happened. You know?
But in this scenario, the only person that wins is the Pitchfork Emporium.
Yeah.
And I have to say, in this scenario, who is the Pitchfork Emporium?
That's a good question.
Motherfucking Kotaku and shit.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, let's move on to the next topic here. The reason Mr. Charlie wanted to be on specifically.
So,
go ahead,
but before you start, being that we had, we were supposed to do a specific image for the show. Unfortunately, I couldn't get it done at the same time. But you guys can actually see while we're talking about this, you can actually see me work on this thing.
Yes, so I
live.
Live.
We're gonna test this out. If I fuck up.
Okay.
Right.
So earlier
Was that
this
a pun
week,
there, Manny? When you said butt? Was that like a pun? Or...
By the way, shout out to Brian here, who came up with a clever title of this episode, because I had to come up with something, and Brian came up with something infinitely better, which works on multiple levels. The name of this episode is "Get That Weak Ass Out of Here." Works on so many levels. So basically, Blizzard, they removed like a victory post from this girl. I believe her name was Tracer, right?
Yes, it was.
Because apparently one person on the forum got really mad. They were like, "Oh yeah, why are you making her sexy? She's supposed to be a really funny character, and you're giving her this provocative pose." And then they were like, "Okay, we're gonna take that off and stuff." And obviously, people went fucking crazy. You know, they're like, "You're kind of compromising your artistic integrity." You know, the usual shit, right? My thing was when I saw this, I'm looking at her. I'm like, okay, she's doing a back pose. There's absolutely nothing sexy here. What's going on, you know?
And you know what's going on.
Oh, I do know what's going on, but you know, by the way, I need to say this real quick. You guys know that website, the Mary Sue?
Oh, yes.
They have, okay, if you look at their logo, right, what do they have? They have a woman showing off her ass, you know, pumping iron or whatever, and it's like, and they were vilifying this shit, like, oh yeah, look at Blizzard, they're objectifying women. It's like, your logo literally has a woman's ass in our faces.
Oh, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, Tony. Like,
Yeah,
I'll be the asshole. I'll come out and say it. I am sorry to the one person who got super offended and started this whole terrible train wreck. I am sorry that your human physical body is a tragic dumpster fire, and the sight of anybody with a waist brings upon intense feelings of guilt and anger. I would take those feelings and roll them into your real life. Maybe an exercise routine, maybe some fucking therapy. But whatever reason, if your reaction upon seeing a character who, if they are sexualized, is just the tiniest bit so, if you see that and your first reaction is anger and repulsion, you have bigger fucking problems.
Oh shit. And then the other thing is, okay, by the way, this victory post she was doing, a couple of the other characters do it too, right? A couple of the male characters, nobody said anything, right?
I think the biggest problem is the fact that she has a you can actually see the shape of her butt. Like, in other words, it's so weird. Like how is seeing the shape of someone's butt all of a sudden a bad thing?
Yeah, it reminds me of that episode of The Simpsons. You know, it's like I could see your figure. You know, it's like, really? We've gotten to that point now. It's like, okay, it's like it's 2016, but it seems like we're reverting back to like 1920 or something. You know, or even a little further than that. You know, I don't get it. You know, this whole puritanical thing.
To be honest, in the old days, what was what would have been the problem is not the fact that this character has a back pose. The problem would have been, why does it have to be a skinny girl?
Yeah, exactly.
That's doing that's in this game. How come there aren't more characters that represent me? Right?
Exactly, and then the other thing is, then Blizzard came out with their reasoning, the most bullshit reason. They were like, "Oh, we actually didn't like that pose either. So when we saw somebody complaining, we decided to change it." It's like you created the pose, and
This
you don't.
is
like
our
it.
decision.
Yeah,
We did this because we wanted to, not because you told me to. This is nothing like Mass Effect.
Yeah, exactly. Such you want to talk about bullshit reasons. Yeah, man. Like, okay, Nintendo gave a bullshit reason, and now these guys gave a worse reason, Well, no, it was our decision. We didn't like it, even though we created it, Total bullshit.
Well, no, they had made multiple ones, but this other one that they had that just didn't happen to have a back pose, like they had really wanted to go with that one, but for some reason they put out the other one. But you're right. This is a way better idea. We like this one way better anyway. Yeah. This is the official canon one, not that offensive piece of smutty trash over there.
Well, the hilarious amount of backpedaling that went into that. It's
backpedaling.
Like just flying back. If you could take the Rocketeer's backpack and just put it in reverse.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous that if anybody thinks that a game company just spits out art like this and without approvals, without rounds and rounds of people having to look at this and go, yeah, that's what we want on there, put that on there. You know how many people had to see this picture and go, okay, that's what we want, and arrange a set of pictures out of all the art that must have been submitted for each character? And then for them to go, oh, this is not the pose we wanted. Bullshit. Called total bullshit.
Okay, so here's my thing on the whole thing, right? I think like literally 95% of the internet are staring at the wrong thing. For me, this is an issue of characterization, not sexualization. The reason why they changed it was because they agreed. Okay, essentially, the guy was complaining that Blizzard had done such a great job at characterizing these characters. Every character in Overwatch is very particular, very peculiar, and very interesting in their own way. His issue was that Tracer, he didn't feel that this pose pushed that characterization any further. Now, as an artist myself and as a person who tells stories, if someone tells me, if I write a screenplay for a TV show, right? And let's say it's episode 10 for this particular episode, and I write the screenplay and I have one character do something insult. Let's say he makes a joke about someone else's sick mother, and then I show my friend the screenplay, and I show my co-writer the screenplay, and I show someone in my family the screenplay, and let's say that these people quite often read my work before I actually go and direct the episode. Now, if my friend tells me, hey man, I feel like based off of what this character has done in the previous 9 episodes, he probably wouldn't say this, just based off what I know of this person. And then it's down to me to say, actually, you know what, you're right, because yeah, I created this character, but it's totally possible for me to forget the core foundation of who this character is supposed to be. So with Tracer and the Blizzard situation, the guy basically felt that, hey, I don't think based off of what you've shown us, this character would pose that way. And Blizzard looks at it and says, you know what, we actually agree with you, so they changed it. For me, I see zero issue with it. The only reason why there is a problem is because the way in which he came out and said we're going to change it. The thread in question, right, I've got the thread up right now. The thread in question is 50-odd pages, right? And when the thread first started, it wasn't until the 11th page where the guy comes out, Jeff Kaplan, he says, word for word, we'll replace the pose. We want everyone to feel strong and heroic in our community. The last thing we want to do is make someone feel uncomfortable, underappreciated, or misrepresented. Apologies, and we'll try to do better. That is the point where everyone blew up, because the statement was so short, and they just see it as, okay, this random guy makes a post, Blizzard sees the post, and decides to change it, and gives very little reasoning behind it. It wasn't until, and this point is where all of the articles came out, Twitter started blowing up, Reddit started blowing up. This is the point where it happened. Now, I feel like this is the main issue because, yeah, he didn't give enough of an explanation. And if you just read that, you're going to be like, okay, well, you're obviously just pandering to, trying to make everyone feel comfortable. And now it looks like you're compromising your own artwork. But then when they made the statement later, after everything blew up and detailed, hey, you know what? When we made this pose, we was never really 100% happy with it. And he went on to explain, more of the reasoning. I thought it was totally fine because at the end of the day, it's a situation where an artist created a character, and these characters are they're basically caricatures. They're exaggerations of a concept that they were created from. And if you feel like a certain pose or a line of dialogue or an action doesn't fit the original vision that you had for this character, it's totally fine to change it. The only reason it's an issue is because everyone is confusing this with just another sexualization topic, similar to the Street Fighter 5 Mika butt slap. Everyone is looking at the butt slap, and then they're looking at this situation, and they're seeing it as the same thing. They're not at all the same thing. This is an issue of a character being pure to the character's design as a person versus just sexualization for the sake of it. They're not the same issue. That's my problem with it.
It's great.
I disagree with that, man. But go ahead, Britt.
It's great that you recognize that, but do you think that 90% of the people who have jumped on this topic are bringing such a well-rounded perception to the table? Do you think that they're really worried about how a character is represented through their pose and proper homage to the true heart of what this character is?
I'm glad you said that, because in my opinion they should be. However, they're just using this as another piece of ammunition for the whole feminism is ruining everything in games. I feel like if you a lot of this comes down to whether you believe the guy's last statement, that like 3-paragraph statement. If you read that and you believe what he's saying, and you believe that they originally, were always a bit iffy on the pose, and you read that they believe that, hey, the guy who made the post, he has a good point. If you believe what he says, there should be zero issue. The only issue is when you don't believe him and you feel like, oh, yeah, you can say that, but you blatantly obviously changed it because, so-and-so had an issue with it, and sexualization is such a hot topic right now. Like, it comes down to whether you believe him or not. But if you believe him, to answer your question, I feel like you should be able to read that and fully understand where he's coming from and be happy with the change. Or not happy with the change, but accept the change. That's what I feel.
Well, I'm even talking about, like, do you think a lot of the people calling for the change are calling for the change for the reasons that you state that they are?
Well, first of all, I don't think the majority of people were calling for the change in this situation. I think most people, at least the vocal people, wanted to keep it. So I don't think that there was a majority where they're like, hey, let's rally together and change this pose because it's horrifying. That's not what happened.
No, but the people that did want it changed, and this is my point, the people that did want it changed, I imagine there were one or two in the group that said this isn't proper characterization, that this doesn't convey the spirit of the character appropriately. But it would take a lot of convincing to let me know that if there were 10 people against this, that 8 of them weren't against it for the wrong reasons. And that is the problem is that we've come to such a high tension point where you have whole communities of people who are just ready for this as you said, this talk about sexualization of characters. Like, people are so ready for this to come in, and I think that there are probably people who, at least on who have never played Overwatch, who took issue with this character because of the sexualization and jumped on the bandwagon. I really
don't think that was the case of this, because this thread was really quiet. The thread only got loud after the guy made the mid-statement where he said, we'll just change it. That's when the situation came to light.
I'm talking about after page 11, after this hit all the major news networks. This became news because it looked like GamerGate was coming down on people for trying to change or unsexualize a game, and this builds a kind of story that looks like it's a bigger fight than it actually is, and this draws people from both sides. This draws venom from both sides. Personally, from the GamerGate people that I met and the GamerGate people that I know, they are very much about ethics and integrity. And if you explain to them very simply, like you said, this is about somebody wanting to change something that they had done because they wanted their community to feel more included. They wanted to be hip deep in their fan base, and that's a perfectly adequate way of doing things. In fact, that's a way that I promote to do business a lot. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, and I don't think a lot of people would take a lot of issue with that. I don't think if you explain it that way, a lot of the people who are, and I hate to use the no true Scotsman, but a lot of the people that are actually, for the whole, games and journalism as GamerGate proposed to be would really have much of an issue with that. I think more that they're having an issue with the same thing being pulled up by the same news articles framing it as a polarizing sexual issue.
I think another side of it as well is the fact that it happened before our eyes. Like in game development, things like this happens all the time. You know, you have things that are in the game at one stage, and then later on they're taken out. And I think because we saw it happen, we saw the pose exist, and then we're going to witness the pose change. There's this weird like false sense of entitlement that people have where it's like, okay, because we were given this one thing, we're just going to cling to this one thing no matter what because we had it before, right? So we deserve to keep it. No, it's still in beta. Things are still subject to change. So you should be ready for things to change. And I feel like part of the outcry is because we're so used to, I don't know, I feel like there's this culture of just wanting to keep things the way they are for the sake of it, as opposed to actually thinking about why it's changing.
I think this whole thing has to be on principle. I mean, the reaction to the Catalyst event is so disproportionate to what you would actually expect. Like, nobody cares this much about a single piece of art. Even the most hardcore Overwatch fan is not going to be upset is going to be this upset because a piece of art may or may not exist on the internet, especially when it's been archived. This is entirely a discussion about principle. And
that's why it makes me so angry. That's why I mean, just because I feel like, or based on principle, like if you just consider that, hey, this is about characterization, not sexualization, there should be zero issue. I don't see the issue. There
should be. I think this whole thing has. I find it very fascinating because there become certain points when you distill something time and time again that it ends up not representing the place where you actually started from. Like, you see this in video games where shooting mechanics get weirder and weirder and weirder and weirder until you get to the point where the mechanics themselves no longer represent the act of shooting a gun. That is a pretty good example of how that works. So I think that's what you have here. I think we've just by bit and degree evolved so far away from, like, nobody even cares about the original thing. Nobody cares to figure out what actually happened. Now it's just spawned once again into this tinderbox discussion of sexualizing video games and whether or not it's ethical. This has become a small prop to a greater argument. And the unfortunate thing is, like any mob, like, you're not solving a problem anymore. You're just trying to prove you're right.
And another thing as well is, I think ironically, this whole situation is actually testament to how well the characters in the Overwatch are designed. Because you have to remember, the game is not out yet. When the game was announced, I believe 2 years ago at BlizzCon, like, you would be shocked to see how many fans and cosplay and, like, all of the people who were interested in this universe and the people that inhabit the universe. And Blizzard did such a great job. Like, even just the way that when you're playing the game, the things that the character says when they shoot someone or when they respawn or when they start the game, you get a really good impression as to who these characters are, what they like, what they dislike, and just, the person that they are. And because of all of those things put together, you have this guy who makes this post where it's like, hey, because you've done such a great job with all of these characters, why not let's just like do a slightly even better job? And it's like, I fully respect that, and I think that's actually, like a beautiful thing in a way, because he's not, as angry as his post sounded, at the end he just said, I just want to make this game better because you've done such a great job at characterizing these people, why not go that step further? And I think that's fully justifiable.
I mean, that's amazing. Like, that is the heart of what nerds do, is we argue about petty bullshit that we love. Like, and I think that's something to be embraced. It's great to see that much hype surrounding something. My question, I guess, at the risk of detouring the conversation then becomes, like, where did this conversation as a community go wrong? Like, as a person in my personal life, if I get into a fight with somebody, I often try and sit back and say, like, where did this conversation go wrong? Where did you think I said A when I meant B, and this led to this whole big thing? So kind of applying that to the macro situation here, why does a conversation about passion and representation of characters in games, how does it get so far out of whack that it ends up being pulled away from its original intent and become this big hot button issue? And how, as we as a community, how can we as a community prevent this from happening in the future? How can we stop these naturally passionate discussions that we have from devolving into these hot button topics that have been, at least in my opinion is really coming in hard here, that have been handcrafted for clickbait articles? Like, it seems like there is a group of people who is like trying to start fights because it makes news. Like, how do we get around that and enjoy the things we love as nerds, which is, again, nitpicking semantics on an unprecedented level?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think definitely a big part of it is the principle. Like you said, it's just a large majority of the people who are very vocal are vocal purely because of the principle of, hey, you put this in the game, we want to keep it. Screw you and your reasoning. My reasoning is more important. Like, I think that's a big part of it.
Yeah, Andre, get in here, man. What do you say?
Yeah, I was gonna say, the 24-hour news cycle is, plays a part in this too. I mean, plus, with the internet, everything's news all the time, all day anyway. So no matter what you rather post about, it's gonna be news. So if if they didn't like the way the character looked, they didn't like the way something happened in the game, you can. That's the beauty and that's the gift and the curse of the internet. You can give constructive criticism, but then you can also just be an asshole and just want to just say shit for, you know what I'm saying? I mean,
Yeah.
my thing is, you don't like it, you can voice your opinion. Make your own shit. God, shut up. Jesus Christ, shut up. That's the thing. It just irritates me. I mean, like I said, you're entitled to say what you want, and you're entitled to post what you want. That's fine. If you want to do the post, get your little clickbait so you can get your hits, whatever, that's fine. It's up to you. But at the end of the day, the creators of the product, that's their baby. It's their decision. If they want to bow to the pressure, that's on them. It's whatever. But, it's everybody wants to be, everybody thinks they're entitled to say, hey, I think you should do that. You're good. You can say you think that all you want to, but we're not going to change this unless there's a consensus. It's like, everybody wants to make a petition to change this or to do this or do this. I'm like, if you don't want to get off your couch and get up, go to school, learn how to do this stuff yourself, do all the footwork, do all the blood, do all the blood, sweat, and tears, all the hard work to do it yourself, then shut up. Let your opinion go and go on. It's not a big deal. It's like and this reminded me of it's gonna start a bunch of shit. Somebody sent me a link of Anita Sarkeesian did a video about asses in video games.
Oh.
And I was like, what? And I watched it. It was like, it was so funny. I was laughing my ass off. It was like they showed Bayonetta and Lara Croft and all this stuff. And then, you have the only support. There's only a few male asses that are on the. I'm like, who cares? There's still plenty of male asses to look at on games if you want to. Whatever.
Listen, every single game has a male ass. Has anybody thought about that? Have you ever played Metal Gear Solid 5 or 4?
Somebody had a gift that showed all the male asses in video games. I saw it on Facebook.
Exactly,
like,
it's 90% male asses.
I was like, what? She didn't even show half the games out there. I was like, what are you missing so much? What the hell?
Well, that's what she does, bro.
She went into the PlayStation Lara Croft. I was like, come on, seriously, really?
Yeah, well, she has to prove her point. She that's the reason people don't like it. Yeah, because she cherry picked.
And I was like, you wasted all your time. You did all that editing for that, and that was the dumbest argument I've ever heard. I was like, that's what people do now. That's the thing now, is to just waste time. It's like I'm never gonna get that 15 minutes back. Because I was waiting for a point, and there was never a point. There's never a point. I was like, it's like, I mean, yeah, everybody's entitled to your opinion. I appreciate everybody's opinion. It's cool. But at the end of the day, it's not your decision. At any point, at any time. Unless you're doing unless somebody has a Kickstarter and you're putting money into it, and one of the tiers is, hey, you get to give your input. And even then you don't really have a say. So, that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, Manny, get in here. What do you make about this? As a artist.
As an artist, I feel there are two sides to the sort of issue. As an artist, you do have a responsibility to the community to put the best thing forward, and if the community at some point does demand that something different, you may need to rethink the ideas that you have. It's kind of a sad thing to happen, but sometimes you do have to compromise your ideas to be more acceptable by the general populace. And
yeah, when you make anything for the public, it's like you as an artist only own it to a certain extent, right? Like,
exactly.
But I don't even think that example is apt in this situation because Okay, sorry, go on.
I mean, again, it is. I do feel that it does, it is acceptable to this situation too. Yes, it somehow didn't represent the character. I don't know who the character is, and I don't understand why a pose somehow makes you think any different of this character. I mean, I could see if she started grabbing her boobs or something like that. That doesn't seem very characteristic of the way, even by the way they portray her in this artwork, that I'm using as reference on the side. So I mean, I don't know what I do feel that maybe yes, that maybe he was maybe he might have been asking them to think a little bit harder on something, but I feel like, as far as a pose goes, I mean, it's a little bit silly to kind of debate over something like that.
I don't think the decision to change that pose in particular is them compromising their artistic integrity. I think if they agreed that.
But I mean, to be honest, it's also a minuscule thing.
Yeah,
it's not really that important. It's not like she It's not like she had if we really want to get into this, it's not like she had like a boob window or anything like that. It's literally just one small thing that's like they could have just they couldn't even actually need to say a damn thing. They could have just changed the damn thing and then not said anything. And I think, to be honest, that probably would have been a lot better.
Yeah, most likely.
Even just acknowledging it, that to me was what caused the biggest issue.
And can I just piggyback on something right quick?
Go on.
Yeah, I just want to piggyback on that real quick. When you said that about with the artists, like I said, now I agree I agree that if they come up with a consensus, they come up with a poll and say, hey, do you like this or if you don't like this, and overwhelmingly the general public goes, hey, I don't think we like this better. Then I understand you retooling, rethinking your strategy on the character and stuff like that. That's my only, that's my side thing about that. I mean, I do agree with that. I want to let you know, I do agree with that. I'm not saying just, as an artist, you go, fuck you and whatever. I don't think that.
Well, again, there's a point where, as an artist, you want to put your vision out there, and there's like two versions. There's like one, it's like I'm gonna put my vision out there no matter what, and nobody can tell me what the hell I'm doing, what I'm gonna do. But then when you have something, especially when you're doing stuff for popular media like video games, you are kind of beholden to the actual community that is out there.
But again, like it's the majority. When the thing first came to be, when the post was first made, it wasn't the majority of people saying that it should be changed. Like basically, the guy didn't decide to change it because of the most of the vocal people were against them. He decided to change it because if you just look at the initial post that was made, apparently the team agreed with the post. That was the reason why. It wasn't because of the majority.
They made the post because they didn't want anybody to feel excluded, and they didn't want anybody to offend. They didn't want to offend anybody. And whether no matter what, they according to the post, they would have left the same pose if it hadn't offended anybody. They changed it because they didn't want anybody to feel excluded or misrepresented. So they did, in fact, change it to community outcry. And whether or not it's a large community outcry or a small community outcry is almost irrelevant. In fact, I could argue that changing something based on a small community outcry is jumping at shadows and doesn't necessarily bode well for the artistic integrity of the project.
But I don't think
if I were playing devil's advocate, those could all be very valid points.
But I don't think that's a complete analysis. Yeah, they changed it in part because of the community outcry, but the community outcry is what led them to realize that this isn't the character we want Tracer to be, or this isn't the best way to portray who traits it is.
That's what you're taking from it.
No, but that's also what they said in the statement.
What they said was that upon realizing that this had offended or excluded somebody, they took it back to the team and felt that this new option was a better choice. They didn't say why it was a better choice. It could be a better choice not because they think it's better art, but because they want to put art that doesn't offend anybody. That is also technically.
No, but okay, I'm looking at the second follow-up statement. One line, he says, "We weren't entirely happy with the original pose. It was always one that we wrestled with creatively. Like, with this particular, what's the other thing he says? Like, even that line alone shows me that they changed it more for partly because of a creative decision, as opposed to just changing it because the community was upset.
Well, yeah, but it's also partly because of the community.
Yeah, the community was definitely the starting catalyst, but there is more of a reasoning that comes after that. It's not just 100%. You guys.
No. It was never 100%, and I'm sure they're like, we're not really sure about this. There was some discussion internally. They got some pushback, and they said, yeah, let's go with Plan B. I really think Plan B is going to be a better choice. Like, that's fine, but you still can't then you can't then say that they didn't change it because of community outcry. It's not like they put it out there and without in a vacuum they would I'd really go with option B. And so the question of should they be changing this based on what people in forums are saying, like, that's still a valid question. Like, it can't be framed like they're just like I feel like this for this project I might change it. It wasn't entirely up to the artist. It wasn't just the artist being like, I feel this should be different. It was the artist's reaction to community outcry.
Okay, and I agree with that, but I just feel like if it takes a community to make you realize that a piece of art you did could be better to represent the character, like, so be it. Like, you might not, as you're drawing something, you might not, like, you're an artist as well, just as well as Manny is. It's like, you'll be drawing something, you'll be working on a piece of art for like 2 hours, and throughout the entire 2 hours you won't realize this mistake or this thing that isn't as good as it could be as you're drawing it. You're only going to realize it until, like, you go to sleep and wake up the next day, or you show someone, right? It's kind of like that.
Well, no, I absolutely agree with you, but my problem comes, what I'm seeing that the community made a response and they said, okay, here's a change, we feel this would be better. Now, the problem there is a gap in information. You don't know, I don't know, Tony doesn't know, nobody knows what went through this artist's head when they closed the door to go back and redesign that thing. They could be saying, we don't want to piss anybody off, we don't need this kind of heat while we're still in beta, we don't want to make this a big thing in which a bunch of people have an inherent issue with. In fact, our target audience is definitely more in line with the kind of people who would boycott this game for this kind of thing. So tell you what, let's just avoid this heat altogether, kind of like Nintendo did, and go ahead and kowtow to this small issue before it becomes a big issue. That's option one. Option two is they went back and said, you know what, we were really kind of fractured about this. We're going to go ahead and put forth option B, which we had already had on the table, and we're really kind of focus grouping, and we feel like we're going to go with the more conservative issue. You don't know. As an artist, you want to, because you like the series, and I'm sure you support the artist and everything like that, you want to assume that when that door closed, they had the best intentions. And I would like to assume that too. The problem is that lack of information, you can pull out any possibility from that. So somebody who's already of the mindset that they're kowtowing to the fan base and they're kowtowing to people who want to be super politically correct, there's not enough information there to prove that they're not right. So we're kind of left in an impasse. We don't know what the artist was thinking. And although I'd love to give them the benefit of the doubt, it's no more right to say, or it's no more right to deny them that benefit of the doubt.
Well, I guess upon reading their statement again, another line they say is that that the pose had been called into question from an appropriate standpoint by players in our community did help influence our decision. Getting that kind of feedback is part of the reasoning we're holding a closed beta test. So, yeah, they definitely changed it because it was brought to light by the community. But again, and one last thing, or one of the few last things I want to say is, like, the guy who made the initial post, he brought up the fact that the game already has, like, 2 super hyper sexy characters that are blatantly designed to be hyper sexy, and they are already good at doing that. So it's not like if Blizzard was super concerned about sexualization, they would change every single pose that this other character has. Her name's Widowmaker, the sniper. They would change all of her poses and never show her butt ever again if they were the kind of company that's like, hey, we want to please everyone, and we don't want, anyone to be upset with having big sexy asses in our games. But that's not the case. So for me, that the decision to not change characters like Widowmaker shows me that this is mainly a decision based out of creativity and representing who the character is. If you've already got one character who's super sexy, you don't need the other female character to be sexy in this instance. And again, another thing I want to say as well is, like, I'm not even saying that, like, the kind of character that Tracer is, like, yeah, she's silly, she's like, always making jokes, and she's very kind of, I don't know, kind of like a very aloof kind of airhead, right? I don't think that you can't have this pose and be that character at the same time. I actually don't think that. I think it's totally fine to pose that like that and be the character they're trying to make her be. But the logic behind, hey, we don't want to portray her this way, and we feel like it's contrary to who she's trying to be. Plus, we already have these other characters that are there to blatantly be sexy. Because of that, we're going to change her. I think that's fine.
So maybe it's not even the sexiness.
Yeah, hold on, Brett. I want to get Chris in here real quick. Chris, what do you make of all this?
I guess I'm old, and I get grumpy at this kind of stuff. I think if I were in a position where I was making a game, whatever, and I put out and had all this approved art and stuff, I really don't give a shit what anyone thinks of it. I would put it out there.
That's the Nintendo approach.
Well, it's the look. You can have community say and stuff. If you have a closed beta, that's for the functioning of the game, right? You get feedback on the game's functioning, if it has problems and stuff and whatever. But if you put out promotion art, right? That's just for promotion. That's all it is, right? If they don't like the pose, you know what? Get over it. Don't buy the game if you don't want it.
It wasn't promotion art, though.
I don't care. I don't care what it is. I like Charlie. I like what you said. I like the characterization stuff. I agree with you because I burn most of my anger on Nintendo. I'm not angry about this. I'm not like sitting there like, ooh, they took away a butt from me. I'm not like that. I don't care. If I really want to see that, I'll buy the art of Overwatch or something.
Yeah, this is mobile. I don't give a shit.
I don't give a crap about it. It's just that if this is coming from Blizzard, it just seemed this was more politically motivated than anything. Then it's we were on the fence about this. I don't believe that for a second, because if you were, I know you, as designers and whatever, and you're working in your bubble and stuff, and sometimes you don't see the forest through the trees, and you make a decision and then you regret it, right? I don't think that was the case here. I think they saw that and they're like, all right, let's just avoid a problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
Slip another piece of art in there. Good to go, nobody's offended, all right, and we'll move on with our day. I think that's what happened. That annoys me because I wouldn't do that. I'd be like, yeah, you got a problem? Move on.
Yeah,
Keep
exactly.
walking.
Yeah, Brian, get in here, man. What do you make of this?
My main thoughts right now are just, first of all, there's been a lot of stuff being said, so I would love to comment on everything being said, but there's way too much. So I'll just throw in my 2 cents for the time being. Okay, going back to what Charlie said, this goes back to what the guy thought that the character should and shouldn't be, which is fair enough. But then it goes back to my main problem with art in general, is that essentially it was his interpretation of the pose, of his interpretation of the character, and the problem is that interpretation may not be the correct interpretation. And I'm not in any position to say whether or not he's right or wrong, but that for me is a definite issue, because his interpretation could be incorrect, and then this whole thing could just be a whole bunch of people being incorrect and Blizzard just doing the wrong thing. But then at the same time, it could be a whole bunch of people being correct and Blizzard doing the right thing. So it's very 50-50 to me.
Well, I agree with the first part of what you said, Brian, because who would know the character better than the guys who created it?
See, I think that's the silliest thing to say. I really get annoyed when people say that, because first of all, it's not even like this character is just like religious, from this religious like textbook, and there's like so much history, and you got to like really study theology to know who this person is. No, she's a video game character with like 3 very clear traits, and you get to know her through how she speaks, what she does, and things like that. So it's not like there's 5 different interpretations of who Tracer is. What you see is what you get. So I feel like that really isn't that
But
shouldn't
how's it
be.
silly to say that the guys who created her don't know her well and
No, but-
better than the fans do,
Okay,
or than
great.
some guy in the community forum? If I say Batman loves cheesecake and that's my Bible canon, and somebody says, DC says, oh well, no, Bruce Wayne works out and he doesn't eat cheesecake, and I go, no, Batman eats cheesecake. He loves cheesecake because in my head that's how he should be.
But
His character.
on the contrary, like if you make a character and this character is in a cartoon or a comic, the fans actually usually know that person. How can I say? Like they're the ones who receive that person. Yeah, the creator is the creator, but the fans are the ones receiving it. And second of all, you don't just because like let me not lose my train of thought. Like it's not impossible for someone to receive a character a certain way, and then to say something about that character, and then for the creator to acknowledge that that person is right. Like it's not really about who are you to say who this character is. It's about whether or not the creator agrees with you. And again, I know you don't believe what the creator said about their reasons for changing it, but if you do take what they say for face value and you believe them, then basically you just have to accept that they agreed with the fact that, hey, this guy thinks that Tracer is this way. We created Tracer, and we acknowledge that he's actually correct. That's
I have to ask this.
I don't take any business statement at face value, because at the end of the day, it's always about money. Always 100% about that sale. So I will never take anything they say at face value.
If he didn't want to change it, would he be saying, I don't want to change this, but they're making me? Like, is that even an option?
No, he can't say that. Are you kidding me? If he wants to keep his job.
So it seems like no matter what, he's going to be like, this is something I wanted to do. Like, that's going to be said regardless, right?
Well, yeah, that's called towing a line, right? If the powers that be, if Activision came down on him and said, hey, listen, we don't want any problems, just make this go away, right? Then, of course, they're going to have to cook up a story, come up with something good, and somebody's going to have to take heat. That is how this works in the business, right? That's how it always works in any business.
I just feel like if I created a character, right, and someone was reading this character in like my stories, and then that person came to me and said, hey, based off of what I've read, I don't feel like this character would have did this thing in like episode 10. I wouldn't then be like, but I created him. Like who you? What do you know? You're just the reader. No, the reader is the person who receives your creation. So if they have a certain feeling about what they've received, they are just as entitled and have just as much of a point as you will, because you're creating it. You're creating it for them.
But then
so you
have
can't
to
say
validate
who are you.
like every stupid fan theory out there. You have to, if like fans sit there and say, "Oh, Jar Jar Binks is the Sith Lord," right? Because
No, but that's different. That's an exaggeration. That's
Why
not
is
even an apt
why is-
example.
Why
No.
is that an exaggeration?
Yeah, why is that
Because
exaggeration?
they are receiving George Lucas's character and they're interpreting these incidents as he's a Sith Lord, right? So what makes them wrong?
Because you're talking about a conspiracy theory versus.
No, it's a fan theory. It's they watched the same movies we did, and they came up with an argument that actually they have like scenes and proofs of this to show why it's correct. So why are they wrong and this right?
Because
Why-
you're comparing a fan theory to.
It's a fan theory. So is this? It's an interpretation. It's a feeling you get from something. If you set up a character lore for someone, and then someone who reads it and ingests it interprets it differently and comes at you and says, "I don't believe this character should do this because of X, Y, and Z." I think you as a creator can say, "No, that's an interesting interpretation, but you know what? This is what we got here."
I see the parallel you're drawing, but I feel like comparing what a character how a character would pose and what a character would say versus being a Sith Lord or not is pretty different. Like there isn't. It's not difficult to see. Okay, this character behaves this way, so it's unlikely that she would say or do this thing. It's not the same as a Sith
but
Lord.
this is all fiction we're talking about. We're arguing about air, right? This is just a chick in a game that about shooting people, right? At the end of the day, I really don't care. But
Okay, but you acknowledge that that example is not a good comparison.
It all comes down to the
Like, can we
fan
agree on
consuming it or not.
no,
Yeah.
it's a fine example because people argue about fiction. It really doesn't make a difference. I don't care what you think of the pose or whatever.
I don't think it's a good example.
It's just that this is an interpretation. They wanted to deflect heat, and they made a decision to pull this image. That's the end of the day. It just comes down to business. I don't agree with it, but whatever. That's
It's
on
the age
Blizzard.
it's the age we live in, man. Like these companies are so scared to upset anyone or to get thrown into the middle of controversy that they'll just make these ridiculous concessions to the local minority.
But the thing
I just think that's a bit unfair. Like, sorry to cut you off, but like, I feel like if this was a certain other company, then maybe what you're saying would hold more weight. But no, like coming from Blizzard, right, who have one of the like most amazing art departments like in the entire gaming industry, I feel like they should be given a bit more credit when it comes to them saying, hey, yeah, we responded to this because of the community outcry, but
I
artistic
cannot let that
vision.
stand.
Huh?
Blizzard, the game that has homogenized and ruined every franchise for the last 10 years. Blizzard, the game that single-handedly vanillaed out its own World of Warcraft game to the point where all of its original user base no longer wanted to play it. The same Blizzard that constantly fucks over its consumer base by like dropping games and teasing shit that never comes to fruition and plays with us like a fucking cat with a yard ball.
I'm just talking about their art department. I'm not talking about anything else.
That doesn't matter. Like Blizzard as a company has a history of homogenization, and I'm like, I've been devil's advocate. Here's my 2 fucking cents. When you take something and you change it based on community outcry in an effort to offend less people and sell more copies, that is known as homogenization. And every fucking movie and every fucking video game goes through the same process of homogenization. And as somebody who enjoys creative things, homogenization is always bad for an end product. This is good for their company. This is good for PR. This may be even good for a few people who have body issues. But I have seen just as many posts of women who are actually legitimately angry because this was their favorite character, and they view the desexualization of this character as some kind of weird Blizzard saying, like, you can't have these traits and still be sexy. And they find it offensive. So for every one person that feels strongly one way, there's another person that feels strongly another way. And Blizzard is essentially coming in and picking and choosing between these women, and the thing that makes that choice is the narrative, is what's going to sell the game the most, because the artist can feel up, down, left, and fucking sideways about something. It doesn't matter. What matters is how many games they're going to sell, especially with a company as big and historied as fucking Blizzard is. Blizzard does not give they historically don't give a shit about artist integrity. They homogenize the shit out of everything they do, and I have
that's a huge assumption. Like I think that's a bit of a like, I don't know. I think considering that like this game is
pandas in Warcraft, dude.
Hold on. This game is gonna sell regardless. Like whether they change the pose or not. Like pretending that this pose change is all about money is a bit strange to me, because the game is going to sell the same amount of copies. It's not like,
it's about PR. If they don't change it, it's a PR
even with the PR, it's the first new Blizzard franchise in how many years? It's going to sell.
But they want to sidestep the PR stuff, dude. That's what's going on here.
Negative PR. Hold on. Negative PR about a single pose is not going to impact the sales of Overwatch.
No, but it will start a righteous authority brigade of people posting articles about how Overwatch is fucking sexist and blah blah blah, and that is enough negative press to impact the sale, if not by the hype of the game.
Do you really think that if, let's say, like all of this stuff blew up out of proportion even further, right, and Blizzard did not change the pose, do you think that there would be hordes of articles and negative PR to the point where it will actually affect the sales of this game?
Here's what I say.
Do you think this pose would actually...
Here's the thing. I can't answer that directly, but it will deflect the actual narrative. Instead of people talking about the actual game and how great it may or may not be, they're going to be talking about this bullshit, completely sidestepping what we should be talking about the game. So maybe it won't impact sales directly, but it's still going to look bad on the company because people aren't going to be talking about the game. They're going to be talking about this nonsense. And you have all these other people that are jumping in who aren't even playing the game just to throw their 2 cents into it, It just makes it look bad. So, the way I see it, they, instead of dealing with all that, like, fuck it, take that pose out of there. We're not dealing with this shit, Go ahead, Andre, go ahead.
Hey, all I gotta say is, if now today it's Overwatch, what's next?
Yeah, it's a slippery slope. It is a slippery slope.
That's why. I mean, I understand all the points. I mean, I really do, because it's like it's kind of double-edged sword. It's like, okay, either I go with our initial vision, or I listen to the these few fans, or how many ever it is, doesn't matter. But then that just that could either open the floodgates, or maybe nobody will pay attention to it, and maybe the next thing you know, it'll be the next, I don't know, I don't know what game I'm thinking about, but it'll be the next game coming out, the next AAA title can have a character that somebody, just one person, doesn't agree with.
And it's going to happen.
It could be the
and
same.
Yeah,
it might happen again.
It will happen again. I guarantee you.
But how many?
I think, but the next company might not even. The next company might not even do that. They might be like, "Man, I'm not changing this. Screw it."
But how many issues?
It's just. I get what you're saying, though, Charlie. I do. I get what you're saying.
Like my thing is like, how many? When people complain about sexy characters or sexy females and sexualization, how many of them? How much of the time is the issue related to this character? This is contrary to the kind of character that this person is. Like how many times is it that versus I just think this character is just flaunting too much and is too sexy? Like, does that make any sense? Like, I feel like most of the time.
Why does sexy have to be based on a character's persona?
And can we please get this out of the way? That pose is not fucking sexy. It's a back pose.
I agree.
There's nothing sexy about that at all.
It's not sexy, but sexiness should be independent from a character's other attributes. Like they should happen to be sexy. Like there's no reason she can't be all the things that she is and then sexy. Like I can see it if you're saying she's too confident. She's kind of got a power stance going on. Maybe she's a little bit more shy and airheaded. But that's no reason she can't have her legs tucked together and her knee slightly to a side. There's no reason she can't display her personality while being sexy. So that's where I get issue when people say like, oh, she's too sexy. Like sexy is a physical attribute. It is not part of a character's personality. There's flirtatious, yeah, sure. There's lusty, there's sultry, there's confident. There's all kinds of things that are part of a personality. But sexy is describing a physical attribute. The second that you begin to lump sexy into somebody's personality, either you or the artist have begun shortchanging that character in terms of that character's depth. And it bothers me when somebody says that character is too sexy, because no character should be not allowed to be sexy. You could be a fucking frog creature from Alpha Centauri and still stand with confidence and stand in a way that you can perceive yourself as sexy. You can broadcast the idea of sexy and confident despite the body proportions. So I don't understand why this character can't be sexy. Like, can somebody explain that to me?
His issue is not that the character is too sexy or the pose is too sexy. That's not what the problem is. He just doesn't feel that the character would behave that way based off of what we've seen of the character. And remember, okay, just for a bit of context as well, the poses are the victory poses. So the poses that you can choose from is the pose that the entire game, like everyone who was playing in that game, is going to see when your character gets like play of the day or what have you, or when you're playing it on stream. So these poses are basically, in a way, these poses are basically the best way we're going to get to know these characters, because these poses, and remember, when you do the pose, she doesn't just stand there. They do like an animation, and then they end in the pose. So these poses is basically like characteristics of these characters. So the guy is not complaining that the pose is too sexy. He's saying that the characteristics of that pose is contrary to
exactly
all of the other characteristics.
What about the pose exactly is so contradictory to the character?
Yeah, it's literally a back pose that other characters in the game do.
Well, no. I'm hearing somebody say, like, intentionally vague, like, this character, like, okay, I hear you saying that this character doesn't represent, but what about this pose is so out of character that it makes you feel it doesn't represent the character, as opposed to what about this character in this pose is going into your brain and you're interpreting, and, like, I feel like at this point, like, not that much can get said by a pose. Like if you're talking about like her inherent personality doesn't come out enough in her pose, like I think you might be nitpicking, and I think that might be on you, the viewer, and your interpretation, because not that much is said by a pose. You can say it a lot.
It's literally just the back pose. There's nothing going on there, but people chose to make a mind out of the middle. But I want to end it off there
but I agree.
Or Charlie,
again, I agree. Like I personally, if Tracer was my character that I created, and then someone made the forum post like towards me, I would probably not change it, because I don't feel that it's possible for Tracer to be. Sorry, I don't feel that it's impossible for Tracer to be the kind of character that Blizzard wants her to be and not be able to pose like that. I don't think that's impossible. So if it were me, I probably wouldn't change it. But I'm totally fine with the logic. That's what I'm about. The logic and the principle. If they truly believe that this character, this pose, she doesn't need to pose like this to be a cool character, or she doesn't need to pose. Like we can have a better pose, and this is another thing that it's all about. It's about finding the best pose that represents this character in the easiest and most absorbable way. If you can see a character pose in a certain way, like actions, can tell 1,000 words, right? So they want to find the best pose that best represents who Tracer is. If they believe that that pose isn't as good as the pose they've got now, then it's a totally logical and totally reasonable reason for changing it. And that's me. Like, again, I don't think the pose in and of itself is problematic. I don't think it's too sexy. I don't have no issue with the pose, but I appreciate the reasoning behind changing the pose, because again, it comes down to wanting to represent the character in the most purest way that they created her for.
All right, okay, let's move on here to some non-controversial stuff. Well, maybe controversial depending on how you see things. So
you underestimate me, Tony.
How's that, Brett? Oh, okay, Brett.
Hey, Tony, you know what that means? That means that Brett is shining up his soapbox and preparing to put it down.
No, I just take that as a challenge. Tony, like that's like Tony walking in the room and be like, all right, there's no way you can argue about this. I'll put down what I'm doing. Like, all right, challenge accepted.
Yeah. Well, this is okay. Yeah. This is decidedly less controversial, but then again, eye of the beholder and all that.
Which was a great game.
Yes, it was. So basically, yesterday again. Yeah, all this shit happened yesterday. So some guy on NeoGAF, Osiris Black, who apparently is like a trusted source, he leaked some information about what they're calling the PS4K. Right. I'm gonna kind of run down what they said here. So basically, it's gonna have a CPU or GPU that's 2 times more powerful than the current PS4. They're probably gonna make it cost $500 if it has both a powerful GPU and a CPU, right? But they're trying to target $400, right? This thing's gonna be able to play 4K videos and stuff. It's going to be able to play games that are specifically made for it, right? These games can also be played on the vanilla PlayStation 4, but they'll be significantly downgraded, right? And, obviously this thing set off a firestorm, right? You guys already know how I feel. Oh, by the way, I need to call out Damien real quick. He was talking shit. Okay, so basically, we talked about how some of the rumors were coming out last time, right? And he goes, and I am paraphrasing, but kind of quoting, he goes, why is it that you guys got mad when Microsoft announced they were going to come out with their other iteration of Xbox, but you praised Sony for doing the same thing? I'm like, did you not listen to the episode where we all pretty much said this is a terrible idea and we're not really on board? Like, come on, Damon, you're listening through that fucking Xbox filter again, bro. I don't like this shit. It's like, I have a PS4. It's going to be 3 years in November, right? I don't want to buy another one. It's like, I buy consoles because they're static systems that don't change until like 5 or 6 years later. If I'm, my thing is like, if we're gonna go down this route of fucking buying a new console every 2 or 3 years, I may as well just do that with a fucking graphics card and my PC and just fuck the whole console thing. It's really upsetting to me, And my thing is like, okay, they want this out 2017. Why not wait till the end of 2018, ride the generation out, and come out with a PS5 instead of fracturing your market like this, So I am not for this at all.
Why can't we just have like I know I've talked about this. Let's bring back the Tower of Power, man. Like, don't make me buy another PlayStation. Just give me something I can plug into my PlayStation, man.
You're talking about an M2.
Yeah.
I don't even care what it is. Like,
for those of you who remember,
Now, Andre knows, man.
Yeah.
That's why I'm laughing.
I know you know, man. So yeah. See, Andre, man, it's a guy who's been, doing this and seen this for a long time. What do you make of all this news, man? Like, basically,
man,
yeah.
Come on. I'm telling you, man, it's like, I swear to God, it's like these companies are like children. They cannot. They have to make the newest thing. Whatever new technology is coming out. Oh, we got to make sure we jump on that. So when it becomes standard, which half the time it doesn't, we're gonna do this on 4K. Dude, come on. I'm sorry. Why would you make? Why Why? What's the point? What's the point of making a more powerful PS4? It's already the most powerful, technically the most powerful console on the market. You're already outselling everybody else. Why? You want to make people spend more money? It just doesn't make any sense, man. I don't
Am I the only one
why.
who doesn't have an issue with it?
I mean, I don't. It's not really an issue. I'm just like, why? It's like, why? I mean, I'm not buying it.
I think so long as there isn't like PS4K exclusive games, like there should be no problem.
Well,
like,
they're not exclusive, but basically there's going to be like, there's going to be better versions of these games, And then my thing is, I hate to say this, but I actually agree with Crap Gamer about this one. He says, why would you, say you don't have a PS4 right now, right? Why would you want to buy a PS4 right now? It's like, fuck, I'm going to wait till the next one comes out. So it's kind of cutting sales off a little bit.
I think, but for me, for example, I just bought my PS4 2 weeks ago. Had I found out about this PS4K, I still would have bought a PS4. Maybe I'm in the minority there, but Uncharted 4 comes out in like how many months now? I'm not going to be waiting for a PS4K just to buy Uncharted 4 with the 4K. No, I think if you're a gamer and there's games you want to play and you do not have a PS4 right now, you're not going to wait for this new console to come out in 2017 before you buy a PS4. I don't see that happening.
Oh, I don't either. I just think that I think their R&D department just really I think they just don't go home. It's basically they must really don't like their families or something, because they're coming up with stuff that's not even going to be viable for another couple of years. I mean, who has a 4K TV?
That's what I'm saying. They're trying to
4K TV.
Yeah, they're trying to jump on this 4K shit. It's like, who has this thing in their homes?
I understand them jumping, getting ready for it. I get it, but you want to announce it now so it comes out in 2 years or next year.
Yeah.
Okay, if it comes out next year, fine. But if it's coming out like in the next, within the next year, that's too soon.
They said it is literally within the next year because it's first quarter of 2017. They're going to make the announcement in October around the time the PSVR is going to come out. I'm going to talk about that in a bit, and then this thing's supposed to be launched 2017, right? And obviously the other reason. What's up, Brett?
You just touched on the point. I don't think that this is an upgrade for 4K. I don't think that there's a big enough user base for 4K. If you read this, it says that there's a substantial increase to the CPU.
Oh yeah, this is for VR. Let's get that.
This is absolutely for VR.
This is for VR. Let's get that out of the way to make it clear. It is for VR. The 4K stuff is a secondary thing. They really want those. Because here's the thing. Let's be real here. The PSVR is the weakest boy out of the link, right? The HTC Vive is the biggest boy, and then you got Oculus Rift in the middle, right? This is the weakest one. How do you get games to be comparable to those? Beef up the PS4, because the PS4 is the kind of weak link in the factor,
So they're just not showing their hand right now.
Yeah, but my thing is like, okay, you're gonna release PS4K, right? I mean PSVR, that's coming out in October, right? And it already sold out, it's doing well. Then you're gonna have another PS4 a couple months after that. You think that might be a little too much for people?
No, I don't, because I think what's gonna happen is like even on the leaked info, they said some games will run at 1080, 60 frames per second. If you are talking about like refresh rate and latency and things like that, these are all super important in VR. They're not necessary, but they're going to reduce things like motion sickness. They're going to increase the quality of the game. So I can absolutely see why, if they're trying to make this VR applicable, they want to find a way to get the best experience, and that they want to hit a certain note. And so maybe like you'll buy a VR and it's playable, but then you may want to reinvest some more money. They'll get you by the carrot on the stick thing. Like, you don't need to buy a new PlayStation to play VR. Oh, what's that? You bought a PSVR? Well, it'd be better if you bought a new PlayStation. Oh, good, you bought a new PlayStation. Look at that. We got like $1,000 of your money now.
Yeah. But anyway, Charlie, you said you would be okay with this?
Yeah, I'd be okay with it, and I think the 4K side of it, I think that's more of a just marketing play. I think I personally think the name PS4K sounds pretty cool, and I think like people, like when you hear that name, you just kind of assume that it's going to be better because you relate it to 4K. So when you hear the name and you don't do any research, you're going to assume 4K, but then when you go and do the research and you find that it's just a more powerful PS4 and it's probably created to come with the the VR thing, then it makes a lot more sense. But I think I just think like a lot of the complaints seem to be coming from people who don't own consoles and them being confused as to whether buying the 4K or a PS4. I don't see that happening as much as some other people. I think if you want to play good games that you haven't played yet, you're not going to wait till 2017, unless you don't really care that much about games.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Chris, get in here, man.
I'll agree with Charlie with the caveat: if they release PS4K exclusive games, I will be on here losing my fucking potatoes.
Yeah.
I will not. Brett won't need a soapbox. I'll be launching into goddamn orbit for that. But I think Charlie has a good point. Like, it doesn't affect me whatsoever. If you want to enjoy the games now, you'll buy a PS4. You'll invest in it, or you already have one. So, and it sounds good. It sounds better than PlayStation 4.5.
Yeah.
Nobody's gonna be like, what is that? But I do think, like, it's like, guys, come on, then what are you gonna do for PS5? It's all gonna be iterative from here on out, and that kind of sucks.
Yeah. By the way, we don't usually do this, but since it's a special person, I'm gonna do this. Our boy, what do you? I don't know what you want to call yourself. Is a parrot or Throughway? He actually asked us 2 questions relating to this. By the way, he's our insider who helped, who told us about, a couple of things that came true. He was right about this as well. So he goes to the panel. What can Sony do to make you guys comfortable with the idea of PS4 VR? So that's a great question. I'm glad you asked that.
Here's an answer. Just don't make it suck.
Don't make it
Don't suck.
Whenever you're going to show it at E3, because they will show it at E3, do not go the typical way. No, just don't do what you did at the PlayStation Experience, which is like show a bunch of like these VR games and then just show like some guy or some girl like sitting on the couch, like looking left and right and smiling. That shit looks retarded. I'm sorry, but that's not how you advertise VR. That's how you advertise anything that's non-interactive. Like, VR is something that you experience. Like, you can't advertise something that you experience well, because you end up just looking like a complete, or making a fool of yourself. And
what about PS4K, Brian?
I don't care.
Like, PC, man, fuck that.
Well, it's probably that, and the fact that it's like, okay, so Sony are going to release a new console that can hopefully play a game at 1080 60 frames per second. It's like, they've been saying that for the last 2 consoles that they have released, and so far it hasn't come true yet. So I have no grounds to believe in anything that they're saying, to be fair. I have 0 grounds at all. And plus, like, even if it is like that powerful, I guarantee you that you'll still get some studio somewhere that will turn around and say, oh, but 30 frames per second was our artistic integrity, or
your favorite thing, right, Brian?
Our artistic vision. And it's like, oh, just go away with your nonsense and just stop. Like, I don't care about the 4K. I was more excited because I'm looking at the NeoGAF post. I was more excited for seeing what looks to be and could be God of War 4 and Deep Down. Those are like
I heard about, that was very interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, I care about those more than anything else, to be fair. Well, actually, I care about Deep Down more because God of War 4 shouldn't exist, in my opinion.
Yeah, they ended the fucking series, right?
God of who?
God of who? Manny, what would make you comfortable with the idea of PS4K?
If I could trade in my old PlayStation and get the new PlayStation 4K, which will not happen.
Yes, that's a great point. That that leads into what I think. I would be comfortable with it if they do like a cell phone plan type of things. Like I could pay it off over a year or 2. You know what I'm saying? Instead of paying it in one lump sum. Because my thing is, if you're gonna go down the cell phone route, right, where you're essentially releasing a new iteration of a console, more frequently, then give us cell phone plans too. Where cell phones generally, most people they have 2-year plans, right? Give us something like that. Then I would be more comfortable with it.
Well, no, I mean, it's there's also that too, because like whenever you sell your get rid of your cell phone, a lot of times they'll be like, hey, we can buy back your cell phone, and then you can get money off.
Yeah, that's true.
To me, it should
be
be
that game stores exist, right?
Yes. So I feel like we should just be able to upgrade. It's like, hey, if you have a PlayStation 4, you could trade it in and get it for half off. Something like that. Yeah.
Yo, man, I like that picture, by the way.
Why, thank you.
So yeah, that's my answer. Chris, what about you? What would make you comfortable with the idea?
Wait, of which one? The VR?
PS4K? No, VR 4K.
Yeah, it's just like I'll deal with it. I don't really need a concession because Sony and Microsoft are not going to do trade-in things. The only guys who do trade-in bullshit like that is GameStop because they're a glorified pawn shop. Nobody else.
When you go to GameStop, trade in your PlayStation 4 and get a PlayStation 4K.
I almost guarantee they'll do that, right? But they're the only ones going to do that.
You laugh. I'll do it.
Y'all
will be sitting here like, man, I wish Sony had a trade-in program, and I'll be like, I traded mine in just fine.
When you go to GameStop, and if you have a GameStop community card, if you have a GameStop community card, you get even more off.
I wouldn't give GameStop a dime.
Or shit,
only at GameStop.
But yeah, it's just.
Man.
I guess this is the way the industry is going. You know, it's like they're going to do these iterative updates. It's getting closer and closer to just being PC hardware, right? I don't know when we're going to get our modular console. That's what I want.
Yeah, no, we're not going to get that. And then the other question he has is, how important are things like HDR, UHD, Blu-ray support, and improved bells and whistles to the PS4K?
Wait,
I don't know what some of that shit means.
Yeah, I don't know what that means either.
Okay, I got HDR.
What happened?
I think he means.
That's more for us slow people.
Wait, say what he said again.
Oh yeah, because remember, this dude's a pretty technical guy. He goes, how important are things like HDR, UHD, Blu-ray support, and improved bells and whistles to the PS4K?
Okay, so he's just asking how important is the upgraded tech in terms of people wanting to buy it or not. I think that's what he's asking.
Okay, we're too stupid to understand apparently.
I think like because the PS4 has been so successful, I think this is just like when you have an iPhone and then you release an iPhone 6s next year. For some reason, there's still a whole bunch of people that buy the 6s, including people that already have the iPhone 6. So I think based off of like the kind of track record that Sony's on right now, I think they're kind of banking on the fact that some people may invest in this even because of the bells and whistles, even though they already have a PS4, because they want to be part of the bigger thing, the next nicest piece of technology.
Yeah,
so,
my question to you is, do you think console gamers are ready for that? Because and just for a little bit of context, I asked people on Twitter in a poll, are you for PS4K if you own a PS4? Literally 51% yes, 49% no. So do you think console gamers are ready, in your opinion?
I don't think they're ready because it's like, it's the first time this is happening. But I do think that, like, yeah, they're not doing an official trading system, but there's going to be stores you can go to trade in your PS4 for cash or store credit to help you buy the new one. So I think, like, especially in London, like, there's a place called CEX where, like, well, I think that's in the States as well, actually. And you can just, go in there, get cash, store credit, and then, unless you care about, like, the store making money and, off your machine or whatever, well, I guess you shouldn't because you're going to be getting a more powerful machine out of it. I think if people embrace trade-in, then potentially maybe console gamers will be ready for it, because so long as they don't have to like shell out £400 to £500 out of nowhere for a new machine, even though they've already got the machine that can play the same games as that new machine, then I think I can see it being quite popular.
Yeah. Who else wants to say something about this?
I think Brett does. Do you, Brett?
Maybe.
Yeah, Brett, as a person who just bought a PS4.
I mean, I'm down. I'm on board. I'd really like if they made an add-on component. But in lieu of that, like, I'd really appreciate a good bundle. Maybe put it with VR and Deep Down. Give the early adopters a fairly decent, at cost price break kind of deal. You want to build up your market saturation on something like this. In terms of are we ready for it? I think so. I think a lot of things that people forget when discussing PC versus consoles is you want to say, like, oh, consoles are cheaper. Okay, I'll give you that. But there's a lot of benefits to owning a console that you don't get with PC. And there was a time in which, PCs and consoles were a little bit more kind of on par than they are before PC gaming really exploded and they were building most games for actual consoles, and that's that you have a closed architecture system. You have multiplayer that's that's solid and cheat free. You have a game that requires very little upkeep on your end. Like, I can't tell you, 1 out of 3 Steam games I install needs fucked with for a few hours before it gets played. So you do have a whole group of people who just want to sit down, pop in a disc, play their game, and have it be as easy as that. So that's a whole other group of people that's drawn to the console market. So even if you eschewed the whole, like, oh, well, consoles are cheaper than PCs, and, you know, oh, I may as well go to a PC if I'm going to upgrade every 2 years, there's a lot of people that don't necessarily feel like that. To a certain extent, I'm one of them, and like I get super pissed every time I buy a PC game and then I have to spend 3 days fucking with it before I can play it again. I bought Civ 5, an old game. For some reason, about a month ago, multiplayer just stopped working. Rachel and I can't get it to work. Why? I don't fucking know. Would this happen on PlayStation? No, it wouldn't. So I think that's something to keep in mind when you talk about, you know, the benefits of owning a console disappearing.
Yeah, it's a great point. Exactly. All those kind of securities aren't there anymore. But I guess this is a symptom of these things becoming more like PCs now. You know, it's just
I'm okay with it becoming like. And see, the thing, like, it's okay if it becomes more like a PC. I'm not okay if it becomes like a PC. Like, you know, graphics are already on a sliding scale for PCs. There's no reason you can't have 3 iterations of a game console, and each version upscales the graphics. So if you really want 1080p 60 frames per second, like, you know, every bell and whistle on there, then you buy the high-end one. They already showed that they can kind of make that work with the games that were on PS3 and PS4. So the fact that it is in PC architecture, they can, you know, scale up the graphics or scale down the graphics with relative ease and not really changing the gameplay means that it's an option. It's there, and I'm not entirely opposed to it, to be personally honest. I'd like the option to have the greatest, you know, gaming rig, or, you know, the most high-end gaming experience, while still not having to dick around with a lot of the stuff that PC makes me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, I already said it. I would prefer if they just ride the generation out and give us a PS5, you know? That's what I would prefer. But maybe I'm just being an old man yelling at clouds now. I don't know. So gaming is just becoming weird to me. All right, anybody else have anything else to say about this?
Only at GameStop.
I think they would do what you're talking about, Tony, if PSVR weren't being released.
Yeah, I know. I think you're right.
The release of new hardware is the only reason that they're doing this.
Yeah, they're kind of being forced into it.
Yeah, you're not going to see this be a regular thing, I don't think. This isn't the dawn of a new age of consoles or some shit like that.
It could be. It could be. They could turn the consoles into cell phones, basically. You know, every year get a new console. You know,
isn't the Wii U a cell phone?
Then I'm out.
Andre said, "Fuck that."
I'm out. Then I'm out.
Yeah. No. Yeah, man. That's tough, man. I don't like where things are going, man. All right, and the last thing, I guess, let's keep it a little bit light, you know, unless somebody's just vehemently angry about this. Final Fantasy 15 news blowout. By the way, I find it funny that this game has been delayed for 10.5 years, essentially, and the fucking release date gets leaked. You know, let's talk about that real quick. Man, Charlie, I see your head shaking down there, brother.
Yeah.
But here's my thing. It's like, okay, this got accidentally leaked by GameSpot.
Wait, where's
you know for a fact. You know for a fact Square Enix is gonna fucking sue these guys, man. Because they fucked up their whole event. They had this whole event planned for like months and stuff, millions of dollars, right? And then the biggest thing gets revealed like 10 hours beforehand. You know, holy shit. Yeah. You know, luckily the event itself still had some good bombs to throw. You know, but man, yeah, Charlie, as a huge Final Fantasy guy, man.
My thing, like I watched the event live. I stayed up till like 6 a.m. watching it. Here's my thing, like as someone, I still remember. I believe I was 15 or 16 years old when I first saw the trailer for Final Fantasy Versus 13, which is what 15 used to be called, right? So that's literally 10 years ago. I'm 26 now. So me watching that stream, I was ready to just be like, they had a lot to do to make me happy because I'm waiting 10 years, right? But I must say, man, they did, like, with the amount of information they came out with, I have to be real and say, you know what, you guys did a good job. I am impressed. I am looking forward to your game a lot more. So yeah, that's my 2 cents on the conference. And actually, you know what? Another thing I want to say is, right, Square Enix and a lot of Japanese companies like get criticized for being very out of touch with their Western fan base, and this is totally true. I agree with it. But I think that conference was definitely a step in the right direction of making an attempt to change that, because they actually poked fun at a lot of the things that, sorry, not poked fun, but acknowledged a lot of the things that people say about Square. For example, I think they made a comment about, like, the guys who were hosting acknowledged the fact that, yeah, not everyone enjoyed the FF13 series. Like, in fact, it was kind of, you know, most people say it's like the worst game in the series. And they kind of acknowledged that, and they acknowledged that not everyone is a Final Fantasy nut job. So, sorry, they acknowledged that a lot of people feel like they've kind of Square Enix has kind of lost the essence of what Final Fantasy is, and they acknowledge that. And the fact that Hironobu Sakaguchi came at the beginning, and he actually made a comment saying that sometimes as a father, your child loses their way. And I thought that was a beautiful thing to say, and it's a beautiful thing to start the conference with, because it means that it shows you that, hey, they know that people believe that Final Fantasy is losing their way, and we're gonna, you know, do what we can to change that. So I think that was the other great takeaway from it.
Hold on, I find that funny that they're saying this about a game that actually isn't anything, and not even turn-based. It's kind of lost its way quite a bit, because it's a little bit far from what it used to be. Just saying that.
Yeah. You got a point, though. You got a point. Andre, get in here, man. What would you take away from this?
Man, I had heard a little bit of rumblings and stuff, and I've been trying to like dig and trying to find dirt on stuff for the past couple of months. And somebody told me that, well, hey man, you gonna see Sakaguchi soon? I said, what? Is Miss Walker get ready to do something? I'm like, hey, come on. I said, dude, get out of here. I don't even want to hear that crap. And then I was actually out doing something, and Robert Workman said, Sakaguchi's on stage. I was like, what? I was like, damn, that was holy shit. It was true. I was like, oh damn. And well, you know, Square just has to. They have to get with the times.
Yeah.
And I hate, you know, as a Japanese, you know, as one of the Japanese companies that's fighting to stay relevant in this day and age, it's, you know, they have to do something, and it looks phenomenal. I mean, I didn't get to watch the whole thing. I was watching bits and pieces here and there, but what I saw, I was like, oh my god, they hit the nail right on the head. I mean, this is what they need to do. They need to change things up a little bit. They got to bring some new breath into it. You know, I just wish other companies would do the same.
I think the movie surprised. The movie surprised me the most.
Let's talk about that.
I was like, whoa, okay.
Yeah, they're coming out with a CG movie that acts like a prequel to it, right? It's going to be starring Noctis's father. This is the funny shit, right? So the actor is going to be Sean Bean. So you know this dude's going to die. You already know.
Yeah.
You know, Lena Headey, you know, Queen Cersei, she's going to be in it. Aaron Paul, you know, from Breaking Bad is going to be in it. So they're putting in some talent, you know? Yeah. So, yeah, I was surprised, man. It's like Final Fantasy CG movie, give me that shit, please. I'm not talking about the Spirits Within. That doesn't exist, you know? I'm talking about the good shit.
I mean,
you talk like Advent Children wasn't a thing.
Advent Children was awesome. That's the good stuff, not the fucking... Anyway.
I still think, in light of... I mean, the conference was great and all the information was cool. I still don't think that FF15 is going to be a great game. Quote me on that. Like, remember I said this on this day. I downloaded the demo, by the way, the demo that they released, the Platinum
What did
demo.
you think of it?
I've made a few tweets this morning, and I've only played like 2 hours of it. I just think that, like, the combat is so unsatisfying. Like, when you hit things, it feels like you're hitting things with a wet fish. Like, it doesn't feel nice at all. And I feel like, considering that this is the same team, this is the Kingdom Hearts team, how many Kingdom Hearts games have you made for you to not get combat right in this game? And I feel like just that alone, you've had 10 years to make this game, and the very thing that this game is pinned on, which is this is a Final Fantasy that is action orientated, you can't even get the action right. And for me, I just feel like, nah, the story might be good, the visuals might be good, but if your gameplay is arse, then like something is wrong.
Didn't they fix it? Did you play the episode Do Sky?
Yeah, I played that as well. It feels the same. It feels the same. I personally, I didn't like that. I didn't like the combat in that demo.
They said they were going to change it, because the thing, I'll be honest, I was not happy with that combat. I felt it was too, like, basically, like, Yeah, it was bad. It was bad. I didn't like it. So it's like, damn, man, really? Shit.
And this is like the demo doesn't take place in the game. It's like a separate standalone thing. But it's like now that the game's coming out in September, this is the combat we're gonna get.
Yeah,
there ain't gonna be no last minute patch where it makes it feel like Devil May Cry. No, this is gonna be what we're playing. So and I think that's like really, really disappointing.
Yeah, and we're not even asking for that. You just want it to feel like Kingdom Hearts, you know?
Yeah, exactly. It just needs to feel like, just considering that we're going to be the gameplay we're getting, we're going to be doing a lot of that throughout the whole game. I'm going to assume that this game is going to be at least like 60 hours or something, right? So if you're asking me to play this way for 60 hours, it better be a compelling experience. I just don't get how they got that wrong. Even the way like you can hold down the circle button and your character will just combo like infinitely, and it's just, I don't know. It's just, I don't know, man. It's a strange one, but yeah, just remember I said it. I don't think the game's gonna be that good.
Yeah, and then what do you think about the fact that this game, Square Enix said this themselves, the game needs to sell 10 million copies in order to be successful. It needs to sell as much as the best-selling Final Fantasy of all time, Final Fantasy VII. Come on now.
I don't see it happening.
Hey, isn't that the standard now, though?
I guess.
You know what the grand irony of that is that the Final Fantasy VII Remake is more likely to do that than 15 is.
Man.
And that's a whole other thing. Like I feel like the Final Fantasy VII is like, I don't know, it depends when they next show gameplay of it or when they come out with the release date, but I feel like just they're potentially galvanizing their own products. Like, why would you... I still think that, as happy as I was with the Final Fantasy VII Remake, I still don't think it should have been talked about before 15 comes out. Like,
I could agree with that.
I feel like you need to give each game room to breathe in order to for it to do as well as possible. I don't know.
I agree.
Yeah. Chris, did you get to see the thing last night?
No, I haven't played a Final Fantasy game since 10.
Oh, shit.
I retired from Final Fantasy, but
I'll
I'll say this. I don't know what the metric is, like what they're measuring that 10 million sales in amount of time. That can't be lifetime. They have to have a certain amount of time. If we don't sell 10 million in 6 months or 3 months.
No, they said lifetime. That's what they
10
said.
million in lifetime? They're gonna wait for that. So I wonder what is the threshold? Like, what is the time limit that they're gonna say? Wow, we're hitting that, or we're never hitting that. Like, is it 3 months? It's usually 90 days that you could see the trends show that we're going to hit that or not. So I want to know what the real number is. Like, what is it, guys? Was it like 3 million in 3 months, 6 million in 3 months? Like, what is it? Because that's a huge number.
Yeah, Square Enix with their over projections again. Remember with Tomb Raider and Hitman and stuff?
Yeah, I don't see that happening. I just don't.
They must be spending a lot of money on this one.
Yeah, well, the movies and anime now, like a bunch of shit.
Yeah, I'm surprised about the movie.
I feel like
unless this demo is like so early that it's gonna change. Like it's not gonna this demo is not gonna be anything representative of the final product. Like it's like if the demo is so early that it feels like this, and then when you start playing the real game, the final game, that it's so amazing that that's the only way I can see it selling anything.
10 million. That's Call of Duty territory right there now.
Tony, I see a disturbance in the force.
Uh-oh.
I believe I have to agree. I don't think this game is going to be that good. Like, this has all the hallmarks of a terrible train wreck. Like, think about it. Stuck in development hell for 10 years. The lid gets blown off the release before they have before they manage, and now they're building up all this side stuff. They're building an anime. They're doing a movie. They're generating hype for things other than the game. They're generating hype for the IP itself, and that is always a bad sign, especially coupled with a game that's been in development hell for a decade. Like, I feel like they're just they tried to shine the turd as much as possible. They're trying to get we got Final Fantasy 7 to do. We got to get this out of the chute. Like, they shined the turd. They dropped it on the platinum. Like, this thing still looks terrible. Quick, just garnish the fuck out of it. Make an anime. Make a movie. Make us something. Let's make some fucking toys. Let's get this hype train going, and then let's have everybody forget about this thing as quickly as humanly possible.
We'll try to make as much money as possible.
It's really interesting that they're banking so much in this game. Like, when you look at the main characters, like the cast, they they all look the same. They're all wearing black, and they all have like the same haircut. And it's like, at least bank on a game where there's like characters that look like there's a good chance that they're gonna be very compelling and interesting, and people are gonna, you know, be really attracted to them. Like if you look at any other main cast in any other Final Fantasy game, even the 13 series, at least there is like a visual, like if you just look at them as, you know, standing in a line, there's like it's more interesting visually. You can look at each character and be like, oh, this person looks cool, right? But like you just can't really do the same thing.
It makes you want to play the game.
Yeah, it's really strange.
It looks so
especially
with, it makes you want to play.
Exactly, especially when you look at, you know, you think of Final Fantasy VII Remake, you think of all the characters, Red 13, Cat Sif, Tifa, Yuffie, like, there's so much interesting characters that, like, it makes for, you know, it's easier to get attached to these people because they're actually, you know, different. There's a lot of diversity there, but you got these guys driving an Audi, wearing black through the desert, and some random Ifrit monster appears out of nowhere for zero reason. Like, what are you? Why is this cool? I don't know.
Okay, but why did we abandon the whole like Art Deco steampunk aesthetics in favor of like this kind of Metal Gear Solid kind of world? Like, what? Why? Why did this have to happen?
Metal Gear Solid doesn't have castles and dragons and monsters.
No, but they go for this like hyper sleek kind of tech savvy quasi futuristic thing, and then they hand-fist the traditional Final Fantasy elements.
For that.
Yeah, Final Fantasy VIII did that shit.
No, but 9 went back to the original stuff. So
yeah,
even 10 was quite
J-pop culture.
Even 10 was quite exotic. Like
wasn't 13 like this?
Yeah,
13 was like this too. Yeah. That hyper
J-pop culture.
You do remember that 13 was this game versus which
was 13
really was a part of the 13 world. So
it's gonna have that DNA in there, you know.
Right.
So you gotta keep that in mind.
That to me is like another big like hilarious point. Like the fact that they changed the name to FF15. It's like, how desperate are you? Like you know that like they're so desperate to separate this game from the train wreck that was the 13 series that they made the game a main titled Final Fantasy when it wasn't supposed to be. Like that to me is the most glaring example of you guys are scared. Like how scared do you have to be to change the name of a game?
Is it scared, or is it just like, fuck, we don't have a Final Fantasy 15 game, just brand that one? You know, either way, they weren't planning any of that, you know? It wasn't planned at all. It's just, I don't know, man. And you're scaring me now, because I'm still hyped for this shit. You know? But I'm like, fuck, man.
He set the doubt in your mind.
Well, no, I agree with
Brett. Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
No, I was just going to say I agree with Brett, because that's all the hallmarks you hear of, like, when a movie is a train wreck, what happens? It's in development hell for years. Like, things leak that shouldn't leak. Like, it has these same hallmarks of, like, wow, this is, like, leading into a disaster, right? And then Charlie didn't really give a resounding positive. It's like, oh, the combat still sucks. It's like, I'm not hearing things that'll make me, ooh, let me go get this demo now, you know? Or let me put $60 on this.
Yeah, I think Chris has a very good point there. I mean, like, just look at, I mean, like, the last game, it had verses in the title, and, like, usually things that have verses in the title just turn out to suck, right?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
No, but seriously, Tony, hype train, come join me, because I'm still on the hype train. So, like, we haven't been on like a hype train together in like years. So
okay, yeah, I'm
feel free to join me.
Because remember, me, and my boy Gary Swavey were like the only dudes on Earth that liked the Final Fantasy 13 game. So I still have hope.
Oh my God, don't remind me, please. Oh no,
we'll bring you back to the minority show, man. Go ahead.
What's funny to me is it's this misnomer that it's been in development for 10 years when we all know it's been shelved for like at least 4 of those 10 years.
Yeah, that is true. That is true.
Come on, come on, man. What is this, Gran Turismo? Give me a break.
Oh, that's even worse, though. That means they come back and they're like, what if these 5-year-old assets can we still reuse?
Well, I can't even say Gran Turismo because at least more than one game comes in a console cycle.
Oh, shit, that's true. Right. Wow. You know, I'm speculating. But, go ahead, Andre. Go ahead.
No, you're right. I mean, I think it's just, come on, you're trying to save face, and it's. I hope it works out. I truly do. Because I'm a Final Fantasy fan, and I was excited. I'm excited about everything I saw. I haven't played the demo yet, and I'm gonna go play it in a few minutes probably, and I'm kind of excited, but I'm like, the cat got out of the bag a little early. I'm like, you could have played this a little bit closer to the chest, but whatever. I don't know. We'll see.
Man, yeah, but you know, I don't know. I'm still hyped. Fuck it. I don't care. You know, it's Final Fantasy. I'm one of those idiots. You know,
the music is good. I can say that much. I mean, but that's to be expected.
Yeah, but shit, that does worry me because I wasn't feeling that combat in that demo, man. I was not feeling it, son. How do you have a lock on and then it like a creature is so fast it breaks the lock on?
It's
you know,
really
so
bad.
you're swinging wildly and shit. You know.
You know what? It's actually probably some of I'm not even trying to be edgy right now, but it's actually some of the worst third-person combat I've ever experienced.
Oh, shit.
I'm actually gonna come out and say that. So take that, you know, what you will.
All right, so
Final Fantasy.
Yeah, we'll see.
Point out, like,
go ahead, Brian.
Two things that you guys haven't really. Well, one thing that you guys haven't touched on is that they did mention that it will be coming out on PC eventually. So,
did they?
Yes, they did.
Good.
They
Good.
did say that a good version of the game will be coming out.
Oh shit, a good version. Are the mechanics going to be different too?
Hey, you watch when this game comes out, it'll be 30 frames per second, and the frame rate will not lock. I guarantee you that much. So yeah, and also I strictly remember like way back when, like possibly around 2 years ago, I said that Square Enix should just make a damn Final Fantasy movie because like they seem just only care about that. And then hearing the announcement, I was like, hey, there we go. Something exciting came out of it. But it's finally nice that we actually have a release date for this damn game.
Yeah,
because
September 30th, like, people get ready.
This and The Last Guardian were like two games that have been developed for so long, and people just want to get released as soon as possible. So it's good. Whether or not the game will be good or not, I'm not too sure. But it looked interesting from the trailer, and I can finally download the demo without having to buy Final Fantasy Type 0.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Isn't the episode Blue Sky available to everyone now? I think it is. I
thought it was still locked to Final Fantasy Type 0.
No, I think they made it available to everyone now. But, you know,
what the fuck is it then?
I don't know. All right,
anyway,
so
either way, it's a good sign, you know. So hopefully the game will be good. I am excited, and also it means that my PS4 is now officially useless because
you did the PC version.
Well, yes, because one of the reasons why I said to myself that I'll get a PS4 is back at the time when it was first announced. The Crew, The Division, and Final Fantasy 15 were all going to be on consoles. So I was like, okay, you know what? I'll get a PS4 to play those games. And then The Crew comes out on PC. The Division comes out on PC, and now this. So literally, the only reason why I have a PS4 still is for PT, GTA with friends, and Deep Down and God of War 4. That's literally the 4 reasons why I still have a PS4 right now.
To be honest, that's not much different than me and fucking Xbox. Like, you know, it's like what am I gonna buy on it? Like Gears of War 4. Quantum Break is coming. Guess what I'm playing that on? You know, I'm playing that shit on PC. On PC, man. You know. So yeah, I feel you, Brian. Damn, I'm still hyped. Fuck it. Fuck it. All right, let's start wrapping this up. Once again, Charlie, man, thank you for being on, bro.
No worries, bro.
And where can people find your shit, man?
You can find me on Twitter at EBCharlie, and if you're into fighting games or the FGC or just like, you know, funny gaming memes in general, go to button6.com, which is the name of my webcomic, which you can find there every week. Usually on Mondays if I'm on point, but every week, definitely.
And you're on DeviantArt too, right?
I am, but I don't use it anymore.
Okay. I think everybody says that about DeviantArt. Yeah. They don't go anymore, you know.
I'm too busy playing Hearthstone or memeing on Reddit or drawing comics. So yeah, button6.com.
All right, and Andre, man, as always, brother, thank you for being on tonight, man, with that insight,
man. I appreciate it, man. Sorry, I had to duck in and out, kids and stuff, man.
Yeah, you know, it's cool.
But yeah, man, I appreciate it, man. I'm glad to be on, man.
All right, you know, plug your stuff, man. Where can we find you? What can they look out for? All of that.
You can find me Otaku Man 5000, pretty much anywhere. RealOtakuGamer.com is the site. we're trying to do big things. You can hit me up on Real Talk Gamer, Facebook, Twitter, everywhere, Google Plus, everywhere, man. I'm just trying to keep, trying to keep gaming, man. Trying to keep these kids from ruining it, man. Oh God.
We're gonna try to preserve it for you, man.
Man, I appreciate it.
It's getting crazy out there.
Hey, I just want to say, man, you guys are doing phenomenal work. I'm so proud to know you guys. It's just you don't even know.
The feeling is mutual, bro. For real, man. Matt, and every time I talk to you, I get a lot of insight off of you, man. The old school shit, man, the real shit.
I appreciate it, man, because you got to keep it real, man. This shit right here, you'll get twisted, man, if you keep falling in these traps out here, man. It's crazy, man. I appreciate it though, for real.
Definitely, man. And you know how it is, man. Doors open anytime, man.
Oh man, I appreciate it.
All right.
As soon as I get myself started, we'll get you on too.
Yeah, man. I'm down, man. I'm down. All right. Little bit of house cleaning here. Neo Tanime this week, people. So get on.
What?
We're gonna be talking about Kids on the Slope. So get to watching that, like I need to do. I only seen 2 episodes. I need to rush on that shit. And that's pretty much that.
I've seen that. Sorry, go on.
Okay. Right. Okay. So once again, thank you for watching and listening. Make sure to follow the Coalition at thecoalition.com. Also helps to support the site by donating to our Patreon page. Subscribe to Throwdown on SoundCloud, iTunes, and YouTube. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Twitter at Throwdown Show. Links are available in the description below. Once again, our show is Tony Polanco, and tonight I was joined by Emilio Lopez, who's still drawing.
Yes, I'm still drawing, but this is pretty much what the Throwdown image will look like.
Badass.
So there you go, guys. It'll just be just a little bit more of stuff on it. So yes. So let me just turn off my share screen here. I'm back. See you later, guys.
Brian Munjoma.
That odd moment when you realize that the PS4K is essentially a remastered PS4.
Oh man.
All right, Chris Seeley.
Wow.
Hey, good night, everyone.
Brett Murdock.
It's been real, folks.
Earthbender Charlie.
See you later, boys.
And of course, Mr. Andre Tipton.
Peace.
All right, people. Later.
Later, guys.